Warning: the following audio may contain coarse language and other materials that may not be suitable for a younger audience. The opinions expressed in this audio are solely those of the speakers involved. These conversations may contain spoilers for current media such as games, comics, movies, television shows, and more. Grown Geeks makes no claim to ownership of the various media discussed, simply the opinions expressed. Listener discretion is advised.
Yo.
This music is crazy.
You gotta keep folks on their toes. Something a little different.
This sounds like modern white church music. A little bit.
And the crazy part is,
So what's that movie with Dolly Parton and Queen Latifah? Where they had like a choir. They had a choir competition. This is like when they let the young kids have their hip hop influence on what's happening with the church music. And they all get to, it's joyful at the end of the SAG too.
I got you. I mean, with the sax solo in the background, you know.
Oh man, so 80s. Very St. Elmo's Fire.
Right when hip hop was, I believe, starting to take over and really get into the mainstream. You know, and it was becoming universally accepted as the sound. So I just thought that would be a fun little intro, a little something different. Switch it up. But yeah, man. So we are Grown Geeks. This is Weigh In Wednesday. You are awesome for being here. Dave, what's going on, man? You see, we got our buddy Dave in the chat already. That's what I'm talking about. Make sure we get all of the various invites out there. I feel like people should know it's Wednesday. Stop playing. Y'all know what to do. Y'all know where to be. And get all the other channels and pages pulled up so I can see what's what. Get that closed off. Don't need that. Can't move that one. There we go. So, yeah, man. We talked about it last week, and I said that if we didn't have a better show planned by the time, that we would pick up, and this would be our music special. 50 years of hip hop, celebrating like everybody else is. No, I get it, brother. Go ahead. You know, we appreciate you tuning in. You can be here and talk about the little bit of hip hop you know about, you know, your introduction to hip hop, where hip hop first reached you, you know, because I mean, of course, there's some hip hop that everybody's familiar with, and you know, I think some stuff is universal and timeless. But even just like some of the ways hip hop has influenced culture and society and things like that, it's come a long way from its origins and, you know, kind of the way it started, the way people originally were familiar with it, and the way people were originally familiar with it, and you know what it is today. Okay, we're not gonna have a sneeze fit right now. Now is not the time. Been fine all day. Sit down in front of my mic, and all of a sudden the sinuses want to act up. But well, even there with you know, being a metalhead and old school rock, we have some crossover hip hop, you know, so you can't even let that be an excuse anymore, because I know you know the song Walk This Way, and that's got Run DMC and Aerosmith. So Now what? Jay-Z and Linkin Park, they had some mashups. So there's been a lot of times where the music is really cross genres and, you know, oh, that is, you know what? That is a wonderful question from the audience. What is actually considered hip hop? Music. Music is considered hip hop. All of music. No, I'm just but honestly, I think there is some truth to that. Jeff, you want to jump on that one? Is that something you feel you could speak to?
I would say first, hip hop and rap are often conflated, and so when you talk about what is actually hip hop versus kind of the conversation we're having tonight, which is going to be very much music centered, hip hop is a cultural movement. And so when you talk about cultural movements, you talk about different artistic elements, right, that need to be present. When you look throughout history, there is always the pillars of the kind of four cornerstones of like an artistic cultural movement are visual art, music, dance, and literature, right? So when you talk about hip hop as a culture, that encompasses the musical element, which is the DJ, right? When we're talking about in its inception, the rapper is a less pivotal aspect to the music in the very beginning stages of founding hip hop. The DJ, the person who was actually creating the music, creating the sound, was that audio experience that you need to have your culture. Visual experience, graffiti writers, that was the artistic visual arts element of the hip hop subculture. You have dance, breaking, b-boys, and pop locking and all that stuff. Wave, there's always been some different dance elements that are encompassed within hip hop, all the way up into walk it out, snap, you know, lean with it, rock with it, swag surf. That's all on the pillar of dance, stemming from what the b boys did. Right. Then you have the literature, the spoken, which is spoken word in this case, the poetry of the movement, which is raps. And so when you think about so those are the four elements that make up hip hop. But when we talk about hip hop, we often are conflating it with rap music, which is generally just the musical component of it. So I would say musically, what is hip hop? It's it casts a very wide net. I think that rap, whether it's a melodic rap or spoken rap or however you're rapping, I think people kind of really can understand the difference between someone singing and rapping, even if they're rapping melodically. There's more words, there's more emphasis on rhyme, there's different subject matter, there's different types of ways that you use metaphor and simile when you're singing versus when you're rapping, I think. Just from my perspective as a listener, I'm not like a rap professor or anything like that.
Oh
But
no, that is absolutely how it is broken down when you talk about the rap element, and because it does kind of have a basis in um, the writing and being very close to poetry. Poetry,
and I
because
was
it is artistic expression, definitely has a lot more openness for
mhm.
interpretation and how it's presented and its structure. But to the point specifically for rap, there are, most times when people think about, musical chords in a stanza, like you have this verse, if you will, and, you lay down a hot 16 or whatever the case may be. When you have that verse, the way that verse is, we have the very traditional ABAB or
Mhm.
AB, um,
AABB.
AABB. Um, and you get some rappers who, because of their, the level of talent and skill that they have when it comes to the writing aspect of it, they're able to AABACBAABCA, and it sounds phenomenal because they have a lot of internal rhyme, they have a lot of external rhyme, they have rhyming at the end of the stanza, so to speak. And
I'm gonna find this video because I want to put it in the chat. It's a
okay,
video by Vox, and they're basically outlining like what you're talking about, right? They're basically, it breaks down, but visually so that you can see it on the screen. It breaks down raps and like how rhyme schemes evolved over time through rap. And so as the cool thing about the video is like the lyrics are on the screen while they're like while the song's playing, and it's like highlighting certain raps. It's highlighting like your basic rhyme scheme. So obviously in the 80s, it's like very simple. And then they get to Biggie's Hypnotize, and it's like they start showing like rhyme scheme, pattern rhymes, like where how he's, even if he's not rhyming the word, the cadence from which he's speaking is mirroring that, which is making it feel like it rhymes. And it's
yeah,
his paper looked like it was like the first verse of Hypnotized. It just was squiggles and highlights and every other word. And I think one of the reasons though why sometimes it can be difficult to pinpoint what hip hop is because of the fact that the very nature of hip hop is to borrow and repurpose. Like the foundation of the culture is the music first and foremost. The beat, the music, that is the driving force because when you're talking about where the origins of the culture start, it starts at block parties, it starts at parties. And those
right,
at those parties, people were coming to see the DJ mix because they started they found they discovered what you call breaks, right? What are breaks? A break is what you hear sampled in a song where usually in a song a break is a bridge, it's about 4 bars, 8 bars, and it's just in some ways sometimes considered just this throwaway piece of music, right? That you're just using to get from one part of the song to the next part of the song. And what DJs in the 70s and 80s started doing was finding these sections of songs and figuring out a way to extend that, which is why b-boys and break dancing is because these are dancers who dance to the break of the song. That is the part of the song that they like. And so you have these parties where the DJs are competing or they're setting the tone.
right,
People are having a good time, but the barometer for how well the DJ is doing is the break dancers because they're standing in the back and they're waiting to hear something they never heard before because they're not about to pull out their best moves just on some whack stuff that we heard last week or did this other time. Like they're waiting to hear something like fresh and new, a new break. And so in this point, people are able to scour music and find breaks that nobody else is doing before. That's why you have DJs taking labels off of their records so that nobody can look over when they're playing and see what they're playing.
right.
And I mean, I was watching the there's the hip hop docu. It was like a docu series on Netflix. I think it's called like Hip Hop Evolution or something. That guy actually interviewed Cool Herc about his first party that he threw, which is like considered the birthday of hip hop. He was like, "So what kind of records did you play?" To this day, Cool Herc is like, "Oh, I can't. I'm not gonna get it. I can't. You know." He's like, "Dang, even to this day, you like keeping those records a secret." And that was just part of the culture. It was like you didn't want anybody ripping off your breaks. It was very competitive, and so that filters into the b boys, right? Then you have the graffiti writers, where it's like these are the people who kind of are responsible for, in my opinion, getting the movement out further than just like the Bronx and the neighborhoods uptown. Because the graffiti writers, they were creating the art for these DJs for their jackets and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. They were creating the murals for the backdrops at these DJ shows, and also they were spray painting on trains. And these trains were leaving the Bronx and they were going downtown, and they were going to all the boroughs, and then other people in other boroughs start their movements. based off of, you know, the art and the visual of it kind of being a homing beacon to like, okay, these trains are all coming up from uptown looking like this. You got the young white kids who are curious getting on the train downtown, riding uptown to see what this is all about, and then they walk into this party because of the music that's playing, right?
Right.
Though the final element really is the rapper.
Yeah.
And
The
in the
graffiti and the emceeing and and I think like a lot of credit needs to go to the, like you said, the DJing and the turntabling, because that, as any DJ can probably tell you, that you know a good DJ can really control the atmosphere of a party. That is the barometer. So having those, you play the wrong song, everybody leaving the dance floor. You play the right song, everybody moves to the dance floor. And much like you mentioned with the break dancers, having the right music going at that time was giving the energy and getting that tempo going. You get a hype man out front with a microphone, you got somebody working the turntables, and you got some people out there dancing. It wasn't long before they started like rapping over that.
yeah, and they were just kind of on some like, you know, clap your hands, everybody, just hyping up, you know, adding flair to it. It's not later on until we get into like music becoming a recorded genre of music, not a party genre of music, where the rapper is elevated above all other aspects of the culture. I mean, in the beginning, most rap groups had a DJ. In the beginning, most, you know, rappers had a DJ who, you know, they shouted them out on the track, et cetera, et cetera. But it's like, you know, yeah, LL Cool J shouts cut creator over everything, but like it was clear that the way the recording business works, LL Cool J is the star, no matter what. And
Right.
you start to see that shift where I want to say like probably Fresh Prince and Jazzy Jeff is like the last real strong like rapper DJ combo group that you see out there, and then after that it's pretty much just rappers and producers, and that's it.
Yeah, the rise of the producer is an interesting concept, and we're gonna we if all
Oh,
goes as
sorry,
planned.
Gangstar.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, well, let's see. When was? Yeah, it's absolutely fair to say that. I was definitely agreeing with you as far as, because the first thing that came to mind with DJ Jazzy Jeff Fresh Prince, he's the rapper, or he's the DJ, I'm the rapper. Like, just so people understood, and it was, at the time, I think even the way it was promoted and presented, it's always been DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. And it was kind of one of those things where it's like Jazzy Jeff did a lot of heavy lifting for their success in their music. But because he's not the front man,
He's not the
essentially,
voice you hear. You know what I'm
right.
saying? Like you go to a party, you seeing the DJ and you seeing the rapper. You seeing who doing a lot of work. When you put on a track and you listen to an album and you're not actually seeing a DJ like working, it feels just like any other song, right? Especially, and then you're talking about you sampling something else. So it's not even like I'm looking at you playing like a bunch of instruments. It's like,
Right.
are you looping this and just don't like just and this is not how I feel about hip hop production, but I'm saying this is kind of the overarching like feeling behind it by a lot of people just at the time. Like they just thought it was kind of just like on some they didn't respect it because it was not all created from scratch. And the
Right.
reality is it was created from what people had. There was no music programs, there was no instruments in the home like back when like people were trying to build a black middle class, and won't go into all the reasons why that was like shut down, but you're talking about during the Great Migration where people are moving to the Midwest and getting good factory jobs. They can afford to buy their kids instruments. They can afford to put their kids in music lessons. That's where you get all these great funk and soul groups coming out of the Midwest. all these musicians coming out of the Midwest because there was a black middle class that could afford to let their families have hobbies and interests that required a lot of time and effort put into it. Not to mention, they had the spaces to play and practice with school talent shows and school music programs and churches and all that kind of stuff like that. So it really just speaks to scarcity. And to me, I think if you look at it speaking to scarcity, it's actually more impressive because you're telling me they made music. I hear they made music they made music and they didn't have no instruments. And they made a whole new genre of music without that. Right? Like it's one thing to learn how to play the trumpet and then make jazz. Because I know you learn how to play the trumpet probably playing like something classical. So you have classical like structure.
Like but that like, traditional training.
These dudes is playing records. There's no sheet music. There's nobody coming in saying, all right, this is how you do this. They're just hearing it and they're just like, I just want to hear this part over and over and over and over again, which is from the school of funk, essentially. But they were taking records that were not funk and taking a funk approach to them with whatever materials they had. Yeah. And to me, I think if people did a better job, I think, of framing it that way, I think a lot more people would have a lot more respect for what those early DJs were doing when they were creating the backbone of the genre.
Yeah, I think so I listened to this. There's this other podcast I listen to, and the guy covers a lot of music theory, and a lot of what he covers on the show is hip hop. I haven't heard him cover too many albums that were not hip hop albums, so it's been a really, really good lesson in, I guess, understanding music a little bit better and the complexity that goes into a lot of music. And sometimes it is so very impressive sometimes the things that are done musically. Like you have just like your basic samples where I'm going to play this 10 seconds from the song on a loop. And it's just the way it is, the way it originally came. And then you have interpolations where I'm going to play a version of that 10 seconds. I'm going to pitch it up, pitch it down, change the speed. And then there's even as far as like, if I just take the same drum pattern, but I reverse it because I'm using the drum pattern from this song and now it's reversed, it's still from this song that's already been written. So when you go and you take that and you add it into your song where it's been, and people have probably heard these terms, when you hear this stuff that's been chopped and screwed, that's where that comes from, where they are taking, like they hear a section and they can create an entire song around it. And the level of talent that's required to do that type of stuff sometimes is phenomenal. And to be able to say this one part makes this whole song. And when you hear some of the different samples that are out there, and I'm sure there's probably like Rolling Stone's got a list for everything. And, I'm sure I was just saying, like, they got a list for everything.
We can talk about that a little bit too when we get to like some issues.
But even like Triple XL and all the different publications, all the different music factions that are out there, there's going to be probably a congregation of the greatest samples used. And there's some samples that get used so frequently we don't even know the origin of them anymore. But it's like whenever you hear, it's always interesting now because being that I'm a huge movie guy, I love music, but I'm more of a movie person. Um, I'm always familiar with, or I'm able to very easily familiarize myself with remakes and reboots and reinterpretations, or a different version of the same story and things like that. Music, you don't catch it as quickly unless you are as immersed and you are as knowledgeable for it. So oftentimes hearing a song and it seems familiar, but you don't know the original song, you just know that, well, I like it when I hear it like this, you know? And one of the first memories that comes to mind for that, and it's funny because this is kind of what we talked about right here at the opening. Um, Aerosmith and Run DMC, Walk This Way. I probably would not know. I would not have known who Aerosmith was for a very, very long time otherwise, had it not been for the one little crossover song they have, Walk This Way. And that started off as just an Aerosmith song. But here you probably have someone who, in order to be good at what they do, have to be very well versed in music, in sound, not just hip hop, but music in general. And I think that's one of the things in hip hop I want to talk about later. Um, but like these guys have to be very very well versed in music in general, not just hip hop. And most of your hip hop producers could probably produce other musical scores and other types of music just as easily, because it's still an understanding of music.
And
So
often
somebody
do
heard
when they're given the chance.
and do very well with it, because I'm gonna tell you something. When I see a movie and it's got RZA as a music director, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna love this soundtrack. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And in fairness, I've been very impressed when I've seen Trent Reznor was the musical director. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, I'm not a huge fan of Nine Inch Nails directly,
Yeah,
but
that's weird. It's too weird for me.
enough to know who he is, and when he is in charge of the score of a movie, it's like the music was fitting. It fit what it needed to fit. And you find out sometimes that they've written all this stuff. Somebody heard, and I'm just gonna assume that, what I'm saying, the DJ from Run DMC, what I'm saying, like he heard Walk This Way,
It was Rick Rubin.
Rick Rubin.
So Rick Rubin is a producer who basically was like the go-to producer for all the early Def Jam stuff. So that's Run DMC, LL Cool J, Beastie Boys, just like really the architect behind that sound. Um, that's why so many of the early Def Jam songs have like
That
very
live
hard
synth,
rock.
yeah, that heavy synth sound.
Yeah. So he was really just like taking that rock. So everybody else was like sampling, funk and James Brown. Like James Brown's probably the most sampled artist of all time, just due to Funky President. The drum break from Funky President is, I want to say, it's the most sampled. It's the most sample of all time. There's actually a very good compilation album of just like somebody did like a mix of just all the songs that have sampled Funky President, and it's just songs that you wouldn't even songs. Sometimes you can't even hear it in the mix, but yeah, the for Run DMC that would have definitely been um,
Wow.
Rick Rubin.
James Brown has been sampled 8,766 times.
Well, and it makes sense because James Brown is, you know, they call him the Godfather of Soul for a reason. He is the one who took music away from the music needing to be so much, right? Like you think about somebody like a Ray Charles, right? There's a lot of musicianship in like what he's doing, but like technically in terms of like he like playing the shit out of that piano, right? Like that's
Yeah.
the way the music is designed for you to hear Ray Charles playing the shit out of this piano. With James Brown's music, like kind of his philosophy is that everything is a drum, right? We don't need to play complex like musical chords and patterns. We just need to find a fucking groove. And when we find a groove, you with your instrument, you get in where you fit in, right? So you think about a song like Funky Good Time, right? That groove is the guitar, the bass, and the drum. You think about Sex Machine, that's bass, drum, and James and Bobby doing their back and forth. Everybody else, you gotta get in where you fit. It's not a whole bunch of horns in there, but when we get to the bop 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 bop, you better be on all your bops. That's where you fit in. That you're a drum. You're here to emphasize this. Everybody else is like in the groove. And when we find a way to get you in the groove, you can solo, do whatever you want to do. It ain't gonna be complicated, but it's all about the rhythm and how you dance around this groove that we've created. That's why hip hop is often considered like, the child of funk. And it's why James Brown is sampled so many times, because he had enough records where he was easy to sample because he was already like making loops. Whereas all these other songs, you're going in and you're like, okay, here's the break. This 10-second part that's like at this, and like 3/4 of the way through the song. Now I got to find that on 2 records and go back and forth between that and that without messing up. As opposed to James Brown, he got a whole section where they just in the groove.
Yeah.
It's easier for me to sample that. It's easier for me to like loop that and get what I need to get out of that. So his approach to making like live music kind of influences then the approach to making hip hop music, which is finding a groove. You don't really hear a ton of hip hop songs where it's like all over the place, sweeping, changing melodies. It's like it's a beat.
And it lasts the whole song.
It might change. You might have
Let's
like
say
a
you
little
might
bridge.
have one
You might have
little
a
break in the middle, a little bridge.
But if you do it too many times, people are like, what is this?
Or you on some other stuff where like, you go on one of those journeys like Kanye, where you start the song here and end up over there. But yeah, I mean, like just immediately thinking about like you said, funky drummer, get up off of that thing, hot pants, big payback. Yeah, I mean, I can think of songs that are all James Brown related right there, and yeah, I could actually see him being like the most sampled. And it's funny because the first thing that came to mind, I was like, nah, that's probably George Clinton. I was like, nah, a lot of stuff gets used by George Clinton, but I think it's more because he produces a lot of stuff also.
No, I mean they're not far behind. Like Parliament is definitely not far behind. But see, what that was that was more West Coast.
Right.
So it's like now you're speaking about the regionality of music before the internet, right? Because the radio did not play the same shit all the time in every single city, right? Even up as far up until the 90s. Like I spent a lot of the 90s going to New York, staying with my mom over summers. And the songs they would be playing on the radio when I got up there were a lot of them were songs I had not heard before sometimes.
Yeah.
Like I try to tell them all the time, like we didn't start listening to Jay-Z in Atlanta until Hard Knock Life. We didn't listen to like maybe some older people did, but it wasn't coming on the radio.
No, and even then, those were a few people who were probably transplants and were already familiar and kind of brought it down with them.
But it was also, because there were some New York artists even in that time that we did listen to. Like Busta Rhymes got a lot of play, but that's because Busta Rhymes spent a lot of time in the city of Atlanta, and people rocked with him on a personal level, so he was able to get his music played. Like it wasn't about, oh, I'm gonna pay this company X amount. I mean, there was some of that, but that was not the best way to get your stuff on. Was to just pay some company $200,000 to get your song plugged into the mix, right? It was really like you got to go to the city, you got to meet the DJs, you got to give them your song, you got to get honest feedback, try to get it like Atlanta on Hot 97. They used to have the people would like send in songs and like people would just they were like people would call in and just be like, oh yeah, I like that one, or they would have two songs go head to head, and you know the song that won got the most votes got to stay. And
I remember all of the old like rush it or flush it's and
yeah,
hit or miss, and like radio stations used to do that, and that was where a lot of like unknowns could kind of get recognized, or stuff that people weren't familiar with might get some playthrough as a result, and people would hear a new sound or hear a new song, and that sort of thing. And it's funny because even thinking about the radio, like I recall a time when there were not radio stations, and it's a two-part here. There were not radio stations dedicated to hip hop music,
oh, absolutely not.
and there was also not even enough popular hip hop music for radio stations. Um, now
Well, I
there's
disagree
always
with
been,
that. I disagree with that. Not
well,
enough that they would
and
have actually considered playing on the radio, because there was a lot of hip hop out, but they was not
and
like it
well
was nighttime music.
and I guess that's more to the point I'm making when I say like, well, I use the word popular and maybe appropriate. There weren't as many radio edits and things of that nature, and but
Well,
even just like music and even radio stations in general, and we'll from the Atlanta area, we'll pick on V103 for a moment. When I was, and mind you, there's going to be a difference between my being familiar with V103 and your being familiar with
yeah.
V103. But I remember turning on the radio, turning on V103, and like there were there were songs that existed. There was Run DMC, there was the Fat Boys, there was um, Cool Mo D, there there was KRS-One. There
Houdini.
was there was hip hop music out there. And V103, just being a popular radio station, played popular music at the time. It was the equivalent of like a B98.5 or a Star 94 or something like that for the Atlanta crowd. Radio stations that were targeted to everyone, for lack of a better phrase. And I remember Mike Roberts, and I think it was like Mike and Carol. I can't remember the lady's name.
Yeah. Mike and
But
Carol in the morning.
yeah, Mike and Carol in the morning. And I remember as a result growing up, there were bands that I would hear and I would be familiar with, and I grew to love because they had a sound that you could like and appreciate. You know, Phil Collins, Hall and Oates, Simply Red. These were
White
things that
people
were
who made black music.
white people who made black music. And that was very familiar. And then it was like sometime later, and I can't even pinpoint when, V103 was the home of hip hop and R&B. And you could turn on V103 and like it was either essentially rap music or some R&B. And it just blew my mind that that was such a mainstay. And not because the music wasn't good, because I mean I've thrived off of it for years, but it was just like there's such obscure songs I can recall hearing, and these were the ones that were approved for radio play. But then there were others that um, nobody had really heard of, nobody knew anything about, like "Itching for a Scratch" was a song that I want to say even had like 2, 3 remixes, but it's hard to find somebody that remembers that song. Um, but the Fat Boys are back, everybody, like everybody remembers that song. You know what I'm saying? And then it's little things like what's the guy? Funky Cole Medina.
Oh,
Um
Tone Loc.
Tone Loc, you know what I'm saying? And it's like when you see these people, and it was amazing like how big some of these artists got because of that radio play. At one point, Funky Cole Medina was on everything. Wild
Yeah,
Thing was played all the time. And of course, Wild Thing being like a different version of the song than the original. And I think that kind of goes back. Like, I don't know if Ruben helped it or, who was responsible for that, but that was one of those things where it was like, this was a reimagining of that song. Um, it had the catchy little beat. And of course, Tone Loc just has like that sound. He has a very distinctive voice and sound. So the way he rapped, it kind of flowed out like butter anyway. And
right,
everybody was great. But then
right.
you take something like a young MC who comes around and he's got a little bit more of the upbeat kind of style. He's got that sound that's a little more friendly, if you will. And because of that friendly sound, I got a man. That was, you know what I'm saying? And what, Bust a Move. Because actually I got a man with somebody else, but Young MC was Bust a Move.
Mm-hmm.
But it still had like that, had the bongos going in the background, and it had that real catchy, like you could find that in an 80s movie,
Yeah,
because
for
it
sure.
was it even though it was hip hop, it was rap music, it definitely fell into the category of being something I would think would probably be considered more pop music by today's
Oh, for
standards.
sure. I
You
mean,
know,
I think like that's kind of a very good segue, I guess, into like the adolescence of hip hop. You know what I mean? Like,
right?
obviously, like, starts off live, party music, very centralized culture in New York City, starts to make waves. Then we get into recording, right? We get into legal issues with sampling. We get into ethical issues with artists just feeling, generational issues with, you know, older people just not really understanding or vibing with what these young people are doing or what they've created. You deal with the race issue of, basically not being basically be considered a fad and being overlooked by the establishment. Um, and I think that's a very interesting like point because when you look at the history of pop music in America, basically pop music is just whatever black people were doing like 20 years ago, right?
Right.
So like Elvis is just like juke joint music that he grew up in juke joints and then he started singing juke joint music for white people, but that's like a style of music that existed for like years and years before that because he had to learn it from someone, right? You look at the Beatles and they just doing what Little Richard did before them and all these other black artists. You look at New Kids on the Block, they just doing exactly what New Edition did. In Sync, same thing. Backstreet Boys, same thing. 98 Degrees, you know
Don't
what I
forget
mean?
Menudo. Let me throw that out there for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's so
K-pop boy bands are the same thing. It's a formula that existed in someone else, and all of
yeah.
that probably stems from
It
those
stems from
Motown
Jackson
groups.
Five.
Yeah.
It stems from Jackson
Boom.
5. You start out in a group, whoever pops goes solo. You know what I mean? Like so,
Richie Valens and the Kids or something like that.
yeah.
Was it? I'd have to look it up, but yeah, not Richie
But yeah,
Valens. I'll have to look that name up. That is not Richie Valens. Um,
and then you even look at and then you look so there's like kind of two things that happen. There's the commodification of it, right? Where it seems it's only valuable. There's a commodification of it, and once it's seen as something viable, then there's then what it is it's turned into something educational that has to be studied in order to be created. And so then you put it behind the paywall, right? Like jazz is a music that started in clubs and back rooms from people who did not have music degrees. But at this point in history, you probably like if you go and try to go like people study jazz and that's how they like get to where they are. They go to Berkeley, they go to all these famous like music schools and they study how to do what was created just like you know what I mean? And that's not to discount it, but it is one of those things where it's like once the people who are not able to pull it from thin air figure out the formula behind it and they teach each other the formula, now it has value because it's something that can be commodified in that way. Like it can be now, this is generating money for universities. Now this is, generating money for music shops because these instruments now can be more expensive because white parents will buy these instruments for their kids because jazz is a respectable type of music. Like, you know, Berkeley has one of the best jazz programs on earth. Of course, they wouldn't have just some hooligan back alley drug induced created music art form in that school, but it's like that's exactly what jazz is.
Some of the best music is
Them was
assisted.
leaning like Michael Jackson off that heroin.
It was assisted when it was created. And side note, it was Frankie Lyman and the Teenagers.
Oh yeah,
not Richie Valens and the Kids. And I was
no, I feel you. But so then that's when you get into the 80s and the shift from music being a audio only experience. The power of the music video, you get a lot of credit is given to groups like ABBA and other European groups who use the music video to expand their reach across seas. That's why ABBA has such a big South American following because their music videos just like went crazy over there. Then you have the introduction of MTV. Obviously, there are smaller channels, smaller programs that are very local and regional that are showing music videos and will show black artists music videos. But obviously, MTV is the number one vehicle for doing something like that. And they were not playing black music artists. But consider this. Basically the president of CBS Records had to go to MTV and say, if you do not play Michael Jackson music videos, I will pull all of my artist music videos from your channel. So this is Michael Jackson we're talking about. Now it's before Thriller, but this is Off the Wall.
Which is honestly a great album.
It's better. It's his best album in my opinion.
Thriller is just probably the most popular.
No, 100% is. But that is the infrastructure, right? We talk about Rolling Stone magazine. We hear the comments that the founder of Rolling Stone magazine had to say, which basically he doesn't find black and he did not find black and women artists to be articulate enough in their art to be considered masters or topics that he was interested in enough to conclude in his book about quote unquote masters of music. Now, this is the preeminent voice in American music journalism. Whether you respect the publication or not, those are the facts in terms of how this institution is regarded, right? It is a musical institution, Rolling Stone. It is in terms of music magazines, it's the Grammys, it's the Oscars, getting a 5-star, whatever their review system is just as important to a lot of music artists as getting 5 mics in the source and 5-star review and vibe. Like for a lot
Billboard
of those
charts. That's
exactly.
Another one.
And this is a person who has been, put in a position where they can chronicle American musical history and the amount of bias shown through those comments, which you can then take and extrapolate and say, well, clearly this is what was shown through the publication, through hiring practices, through who decides to get to be on the cover. I mean, go Google Rolling Stone Michael Jackson album. Google Rolling Stone Michael Jackson covers. Look at the dates. Look, first of all, look at the covers. One when he was 11. One is a cartoon drawing of him that's questionable in its racial sensitivity. I'll put it like that. I don't think that there were any ill intentions. However, the reference point kind of feels like somebody should have pointed this out. Clearly, you didn't have any black people in your office to say not this way. Now, this is the person who basically, for the past, 50 years, if not more, has been impacting and shaping like how America thinks and feels about music. And he's a fucking racist. Like there's no other way to sugarcoat that or put that for me. When you say I don't think that black music artists are articulate enough, when all the white artists who you actually interviewed for your book did was copy black music artists,
I think that's the one
then you're an idiot, bruh. Which one?
On the screen.
It's a lot of yes, that is the one. Like this is what's that date?
I can pull that one back up.
It's definitely after Thriller.
September 1987.
So this is kind of a thing. There's actually a famous interview with David Bowie as well, where he's being interviewed by MTV. And he's basically pressing them on like why they not playing black music, why they not playing rap videos. Now we know David Bowie was married to Iman. If you don't know who Iman is, look her up on your own free time. But look her up. Now, he's an example of somebody who every time I saw them talking about black music and black culture, he used his voice for good. And so he's having this conversation with this interviewer who's just like basically like, yeah, well, we have to think about, basically he tries to make it where it's like, okay, well, yes, of course you live in New York, you're posh, you're metropolitan. Of course you're going to think like we should be playing rap music videos, but I have to be thinking about, what those kids in like the Midwest want to listen to. And David Bowie's just basically like, don't you think there's black kids in Iowa who want to hear rap? Like, what are you talking about, my boy? Like, all the excuses that people give, it's a genre that was under fire from without and from within. The fact that so many black radio stations had no rap policies. Like I get the white pop stations that have a policy like that. When I'm listening to Kiss 104.7 in Atlanta growing up, and it's all R&B, no rap. We got R&B songs where they have rap features, and now you have to release a version that does not have a rap on it so that you can get played on these stations. We're not respecting our own culture, our own creations. And I honestly had a really, really big problem with, I didn't have a problem with, what the establishment was doing because they were just following suit with what they've always done throughout history. It's always been that way whenever black people have created any sort of music. It's, should your kids be listening to it? And it's their daughters and their sons sneaking off to listen to it in the middle of the night. And then they grow up and they learn how to make that kind of music. And then they get rich off that kind of music. And then they see the dude who they learned how to make that music from working at a gas station and be like, oh, you were my hero. And it's like, well, glad somebody's getting to make money off of this. Like, you've been to a blues festival? Those are probably the whitest festivals in America, low key, after country music. And it's like,
been a couple of jazz concerts. I've never been to a blues, but I will say that every time I've in my personal experiences, the people who seem to know the most about the blues have always been old white men.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me has always been very, very shocking. And old white men are like, I'm not gonna say they the ones keeping jazz alive, but
They are.
they're the ones going out buying them CDs. They're the one when you go to a not I'm not gonna pick an artist specifically, but if you go to like some of these paid jazz concerts, it's like it's amazing. And what's even more interesting is oftentimes when you hear the phrase, and I'm gonna use this one specifically, smooth jazz,
Mm-hmm.
the people that you picture are not like they don't cover all of the music. They may have one song in that playlist, but that's the face of it.
Yeah.
And that of course blows my mind because my dad was very much into jazz music, and I I hear things every once in a while, I'm on a kick and I'm like, oh, I want to listen to my jazz, and I go and I try to pull up the jazz, and it's like I don't know the names of these songs. I've heard them a million and one times. I don't know the names of these songs. I don't know the names of these artists. So it's like trying to find it. And then I'm out and I hear the song and I'm like, ooh, I got to Shazam that immediately because I'm not going to remember that, you know? But if I was to play, like hum out a little bit of that song, Mr. Bob can tell me the name of that artist and that album, and it
Yeah.
blows my mind.
And the year, the version of the song, who was in the quintet when
When
it
he
all
went
went
to the
down.
concert to see them perform live, like it blows my mind.
But it's also because that's part of the jazz experience, right? Like because it is very heavy, very much improvisational form of music.
Right.
Every version you hear is different. Like you'll buy special you can find special versions of, you know, like say Miles Davis kind of blue. There's like multiple recordings of it. You know, there's an original, like these are the ones that we went with, but you can buy a deluxe one that's like, all right, here's like another take of, Freddie Freeloader, and they got like the three takes that they did. The one they released is still on the album, but then also now you can hear the ones they decided not to go with. You know what I mean? Because that's how
Yeah.
jazz was recorded back in the day. But I mean, I guess going back to the music video, that was like once that was an accepted. I think that did visually what graffiti did on the train, which was take like what you were hearing and put it in front of you. Because if you've never been to New York City, you don't know what they're talking about. You don't know what the block looks like outside of what you've seen in like movies. And they ain't talking about They ain't talking about Goodfellas. They ain't talking about The Godfather. Their neighborhoods look completely different. So when you get to see, Melly Mel standing out there in broken glass, talking about broken glass everywhere, it hits different. When you see, you know, Chuck D marching down the street with like hundreds and thousands, not hundreds and thousands, but it was hundreds of people in the Fight the Power video. That's
Yeah.
that adds impact to the song because it's like people are with this, and because of the way hip hop was kind of disseminated outside of New York, where there wasn't like a ton of radio support, it was very easy to just feel like you were the only person listening to it. Like every black person wasn't necessarily down with hip hop when it came out. You know what I mean? Like even some young folks, they was just like, "Oh no,
I mean,
I'm still an R&B guy."
there's that well, it was R&B, and again there was that mild indoctrination of access and what we were familiar with and what we knew, what we had. You know,
Facts.
I still have a playlist that that's my playlist because these are songs that I literally grew up on, and I have serotonin that's released when I hear Hall of Notes, when I hear Simply Red. Like I groove with those. I remember those being a kid and liking those songs then.
Right.
Now I got a whole new playlist, but I'm not gonna like discard those songs. But there were
Right.
people who probably that was a more difficult transition because in the late 80s, like I remember probably like one of my first major hip hop moments was um Slick Rick. And I remember like being a kid, and you hear about these jokes, so I'm gonna age myself, but like actually having my tape in the tape player, the boom box, hitting record, recording the song when it played on the radio, and then or borrowing the cassette from a friend and using the other one to record my own copy of it, and then writing down all the lyrics.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm saying, Dougie Fresh, Lottie Dottie, you know what I'm saying, Slick Rick, Bedtime Story. These were like the first, like I remember the first hip hop CD I bought was Slick Rick. Like, never forget that. You know what I'm saying? And it's like to this day, let Bedtime Story come on. It don't matter where I'm at. We rapping the whole thing. Whole thing.
Right.
Word for word. And it's like that kind of impact you get, and it is improved when you have like a visual to go with that, when you have the music video to add into that. Um when you have something to imprint on your brain. That is the music video is that visual graffiti to tag our brains with this moment. It's something like UNITY, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Um there was self-destruction, and these were the uplifting ones where you got all of the people together to, you know what I'm saying,
Something that I want to say is oftentimes overlooked, an super overlooked element of that early hip hop, which is why it's so frustrating for me sometimes when I think about how it was rejected, because it basically was just like on some, you not actually listening to the music, and you're not actually like hearing like that there's people out there that's delivering like a message that like these kids need to hear. Like I think about a lot of KRS-One stuff, and I'm just like, okay, how would you as an adult have a problem hearing a kid listening to this? Because you
right.
just are assuming what you think it is because of what your preconceived notions about the genre as a whole. But I think, that was a frustration for like a lot of people, a lot of, probably, I don't know how much for you per se, but like for me growing up was a lot of frustrating point of contention between like, us and the adults around us,
Yes.
because they were just they weren't really like, well, you haven't heard this song, you just heard a curse word and you think it's bad, but you haven't heard like what this person is talking about, or you heard this one song by this artist but you didn't hear this other song by this artist, and so you don't really understand that they're actually like a lot more complex than you probably think that they are, because you walked in on like one part of a song where actually they're telling a very complex story and talking about something, or from song to song, people are allowed to be complex, people are allowed to
Yeah.
be complicated, and the same go especially music artists. And then when you start reading the history of like artists from their generation and you start listening to some of the lyrics from music from their generation,
Oh
it's like,
yeah.
oh, you guys are a bunch of hypocrites
But
because
no,
y'all
see,
got freaky
it's
freak, y'all have freaky freak music.
right. Very much so. But see, I think a lot of what that
All that
came
moaning
from.
Ray Charles was doing. Ugh, like I know what that is.
Right. Right. It also it comes from, and of course I remember this like being in going from the 80s to the 90s was probably the hardest transition, and a lot of that had to do with some of the bad publicity that rap got, you know what I'm saying, with the creation of NWA, with Ice T, 6 in the morning, Children's Story, and that was Slick Rick. NWA again. And to offset that, the only thing that I'm not gonna say the only thing you had to try to explain it was like, oh well, LL Cool J and Special Ed and Run DMC and De La Soul. You had all these other groups that weren't on that same kind of thing.
Tribe Called Quest.
But the ones that hit the news,
NWA and Uncle Luke.
NWA, Uncle Luke, and Ice-T.
Yeah.
We've got a special guest with us today. I'm gonna give him the very basic intro because I'm gonna let him speak for himself because he's like hella humble and he ain't gonna talk about it. But if I'm not mistaken, my man is a platinum award-winning producer. So, like, respect what he got to say. I wanted him to be on as a guest today. This is my homie, Hustle Man, China Man. What's going on, bruh?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
What's going on, man?
Man, what it do?
And chilling. Just left the studio. Just came up here to holler at you, man. Excuse the towel stuff in the back when I was pole lining.
Nah, man. Hey, I appreciate you taking a moment out your day to hop on. We're doing a special episode tonight. This is a show Weigh In Wednesday, and tonight's episode we are talking 50 years of hip hop, and we've just been kind of going down the timeline. Jeff gave us. This is my co-host Jeffrey.
What's going on, Jeff? What's going
Awesome,
on,
man.
And we've been kind of going through like a small little timeline of the evolution of hip hop, like what hip hop means. He gave a great definition and we kind of went through, dissected some of that. Talked about the 4 elements of hip hop: the graffiti, the DJ, the breakdancing, and then of course the evolution of all of that kind of coming together with the rap.
Right.
From there, how rap kind of started to develop and move forward, and its fledgling roots getting to the radios, and we've kind of gotten up to videos, and I feel like now we are talking like mid 80s, early 90s hip hop, and that's kind of about where we are, and
that's like kind of where I came in,
and that's why it's a perfect segue. Because I do believe, in fairness, I think this is, by all accounts, the golden age of hip hop.
Right now.
Definitely the golden age of rap, because this is when it just took off.
Yeah. Completely.
This is when it skyrocketed, because we went from having a handful of plays and a handful of listenings to having like everybody was doing it.
At this point, I mean, they used it for everything: commercials, TVs, movies. Like everything is rap music. Everything. Back in the day, you used to have like a lot of pop music when you did commercials and stuff like that. Now it's 2 Chainz and Diddy and this person and that person. Like we done completely took over everything. As far as music wise, I mean, rap is the #1 genre. It's a lot going on with us now. Like you said, coming from where we were in the 80s and the 90s and how much people hated it to now they can't get enough of it,
And I think one of the most impressive things I've seen is so we had one of our viewers was on early, and he chimed in and he expressed that, he's more of a classic rock and metal guy.
Right.
And it got me to thinking about
we created that too.
Right. Right. No, we've definitely addressed
it. We're being technical. We created that too.
Definitely addressed that. But it's like with the even then, as the evolution of those genres have evolved, we went from what would be considered like, the big hair bands, watching them go into like the heavy metal, and then the metal kind of split off into a few different genres. And, if you don't follow, I can't really try to explain it all to you. Right. But even then, some of the alternative metal kind of became a little crossover-ish,
Mm-hmm.
and it was because of who was in charge of the production. And it had with I mean, I don't think they tried to pretend like it wasn't. It was a very clear hip hop influence for
Yeah,
those musicians.
of course.
Rage Against the Machine.
Mm-hmm.
What was Fred Durst?
The biscuit.
Limp Bizkit,
Limp Biscuit.
Yeah.
You
Linkin
know,
Park.
Lincoln, right? And
Right.
during that time, even a lot of the some of the alternative pop musicians were starting to kind of experiment with elements of hip hop in that music. So
Mm-hmm.
it is that again that late 80s, early 90s explosion where everybody started moving in that direction. And by mid 90s,
Mm-hmm.
everything was some version of hip hop. Everything was
Right.
some version of rap.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you gotta look at it like this. Once the South really took over in like the 90s, like late 90s, like No Limit, Cash Money, stuff like that. And once the South got a hold of it, that's when it really took off. Like, because the West Coast was already on, the East Coast was already on. Everybody already knew about Biggie, Pac, Snoop Dogg, all those guys. But
Right.
then you had the Outcast and the Dungeon Families and the Trick Daddies and the Cash Monies and stuff that started to pop and really take over. And once we grabbed it, like to this day, the South still runs hip hop. Like, we've had it for almost 30 years now. We haven't let up any. And it's because we're so creative with what we do. The South will have one sound for about a month, and then we create another sound, and we create another sound, create another sound. Everybody follows our suit, and it's at a point where we're so creative. We got the Katy Perry's and stuff putting 2 Chainz and putting all these people on their songs. You talk about major pop stars, big worldwide stars are going to get rappers to get on their stuff because it's a whole nother audience. We got some of the biggest audiences, man. Like, you cannot try to diminish what hip hop has done in music because it's a part of every genre. I don't care if you talk about Afro music. I don't care if you talk about R&B, pop. It doesn't matter. Hip hop is influencing that genre, and they need us. They need us.
I mean, I think the funniest commercial that I've seen lately that just sticks out in my head as far as like they know that's rap, right? Do they know what song they're using?
Right.
It's the Kroger commercial where they talk about how the prices are low,
T-Pain.
low, low, low.
T-Pain.
And
Yeah.
it's like,
You know what that song is, a strip club song, right?
right, okay, wait. So they talk about like I'm waiting for them to do lyrics for it because it's like apple bottom jeans, boots with the fur. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like that's
Yeah.
but everybody knows that low, low. And it's like when I see even in the commercial, the little cartoon people,
They
they're
doing this.
holding their receipt
They're doing
and
this.
they're dropping it down. And I'm like, this is Kroger. Like
Yeah.
you can't deny the impact.
If you can't beat them, join them, man. Like,
It's
you can hate the music, you can hate the lyrics, you can hate the culture, but the truth is, they, like I said, they need us. They need us. You see what happened to Adidas when they cut Kanye off, right? They got mad at Kanye, cut him off, and now they're going down a spiral. You know what I mean? Like, as much as you feel like you don't need us, you do. We were the one buying Adidas. Why were we buying Adidas? Because of Kanye. We didn't buy them because of Adidas. We were buying them because of Kanye. They had nothing.
And we've been rocking with Adidas since back in the day with the shell toes. And,
Right.
But
we was buying those because of Run DMC.
Right. It's
We
like
weren't
if you're
buying
not
it,
going to show love,
we
then
weren't buying them until we saw the people that we looked up to wearing them.
Right.
That it's not like we just woke up like, bro, I like those shell toes. No, we woke up and we was like, dang, they look fresh. I want some of them.
Right. I remember when Chuck Taylor's got real big for a second, right? When Snoop dropped.
Yeah.
Everybody was wearing their Chuck Taylors.
Right.
Chuck Taylors and khakis, no less.
Yeah, it's a real major influence on everything. And I get a lot of slack because of some of the people I produce for. You know what I'm saying? Like, I talk to older people and they like, oh, you produce for Young Thug, you produce for Durk, all they mumble rap, they this and that. And I'm like, they pay. You know what I'm saying? So, like, at the end of the day, it's not a preference thing for me. It's my job. You get what I'm saying? Like, I do hear some of the songs and I be shaking my head like, This is terrible. You know what I mean? But you can also go back to the 80s and 90s and hear songs and go, this is terrible. It's not just now. It's always there's always been good and trash music in every era. Like, go listen to some of them 80s songs and some of them 90s lyrics. You're gonna be like, what the fuck are they talking about? Can I cuss on here?
Yeah, absolutely.
My bad. Well, you're gonna be like, what the hell are they talking about? A hip hop, a hippie to the hip hop, and it's classic because that's where rap started. But that shit don't make no damn sense.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, y'all talking about Lil Uzi and Gunna and Young Thug and this person and that person. It's like, okay, I respect it, I understand it, but you got to give the same slack to them the generations before. But that's just how hip hop is. Hip hop is actually the only genre that does that. That we beat people down for their songs, we beat people down for their age. You know, in the country world, the older you get, the more they cherish you. In the hip hop world, the older you get, the more people gonna say, "Boy, you too old to do this shit."
Well, that kind of makes a point too that like what you were saying earlier, Sam, where there were all these groups where everybody just focused on NWA, Ice-T. What was the other group we said?
NWA, Ice-T. Was
somebody else. I mean, even groups like a Public Enemy, where because they came across so like militant. Yeah, Two Live Crew,
Uncle Luke.
Yeah. Right. So we talking about these are the controversial people. These are the groups that everybody's scared for their kids to be listening to, and there's never any like kind of defense in terms of allowing groups like Tribe, like the whole Natal Tongues collection, or talking to groups like Dungeon Family, et cetera, and allowing those groups to go in and be the bridge to that older generation who would actually appreciate their music if they actually like gave it a chance and listened to it.
If it was
so then what you have this system where the way pop music works is you on the regular station and you on the oldie station because your music is old. But the hip hop never got shifted to the oldie station because all the oldie stations had no rap policies. Mm-hmm. So in 2000, you're not hearing De La Soul on the oldie station, even though you're going to hear Luther Vandross and Freddie Jackson. Well, De La Soul was on the radio right next to them at the same time. All these, LL Cool J, Around the Way Girl was on the radio at the same time, right next to all of them. Run DMC was on the radio, but you don't hear they trying to make like an old school hip hop only station, and it's like it's not sustainable. It needs to be treated the same way all other American pop music has been treated, which is you graduate into an oldie station where you sit amongst your peers of music that were on the radio around that same time, and it needs to be all archived together. But like that's that self-hate, that's that anti-blackness within our own community, especially from the previous generation where they were just like not having it. But sit down, like I'm of the mindset every kid should hear Stakes is High before they turn 13. I was 18 the first time I heard that song, and I was like, why has nobody played me this before? Right. Like why did nobody sit down and play Get Up, Get Out for me? Like I had Outkast album like on my own.
Exactly.
Like there was nobody who listened to it and was like, here's somebody talking about something that you need to hear in a language that you can understand. The only rap song my grandmother ever liked was Dear Mama by Tupac.
Yeah. And you got also understand it's not we self-hating like a mug, we self-hate ourselves, but you also got to understand, like, no offense, but the white folks that run this stuff, they purposely play what they play for us because they want us to think that's all they did. That's all the hip hop is. It's just trash with all this cussing and all this twerking and all this. Like, but no, there's tens of thousands of other rappers that talk about a lot of great stuff, a lot of uplifting stuff, a lot of positive stuff. But y'all don't play that shit on the radio. We have to go find it. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have to go find that music. We have to learn about that through word of mouth. Like, Jeff would tell me about, you know what I'm saying, about Outkast. I never knew about Outkast because they ain't playing them on the radio like that. But I know about Pastor Troy and Master P and all them that's on there talking about, they talking about shooting it up and selling dope in the neighborhood, but you don't have, the positivity being played, and they purposely do that. That's like I feel like I really do feel like there's industry plants, and I don't feel like it. I know it because I'm around it. Like the Sexy Reds and the Sukianas, they put those women in position. They give them a platform, and then we have all our black women following them and want to be ghetto and do this and do that, you know. But they don't show the, you know, there's a 1,000 lyrical women that can actually rap. You know what I'm saying? That can actually spit, but they gonna give us Sexy Red though, because that's what they
So
need to follow.
And I mean, and I say too, on top of that, it's like I don't. For me, it's like that's not to say there's nothing wrong with Sexy Red.
It ain't.
Because when I go to the if I'm going out,
I want to hear
and we
that.
trying to turn up, that's what I want to hear.
I want to hear that.
But when I'm driving to work, I don't know if I need Stevie at 9 a.m. in the morning.
That's why I tell people, that's why they have genres. It's genres ain't nothing but it's different music for different times and different periods of what you're doing. Like I want to, like you said, I want to hear Migos and Sexy Red stuff when I'm going to the club. But I'm relaxing, I'm chill back. I want to hear some J. Cole, some Kendrick, and get my mind and my vibe right. But if you're gonna play Sexy Red 10 times a day, give me a little. You know what I'm saying? Give me a little Kendrick 10 times a day. Let me even it out for me a little bit, dog. You know what I'm saying? Like
even it out.
Yeah, and I definitely think that there is just what I see. It seems very interesting. You talked about industry plants, and I don't want to go down a rabbit hole conspiracy theory here, but or a conspiracy theory rabbit hole here, but most recently I was actually having a conversation with my daughter. My daughter's 22 years old, and we were having a conversation, and I was telling her we were talking about the new song Bongos with Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion.
Right.
And it started from a conversation about Megan Thee Stallion. And you know, I had mentioned, I was like, you know, I like Megan Thee Stallion's music. I like Cardi B's music. And then I was like, you know who I really like? Like, I really like Doja Cat's music. Like, I know a lot of her music.
I love Doja Cat.
And I think she is phenomenal. And I was like, and I'm glad she's not caught up in the middle of this, you know, Cardi B, Nicki beef, whatnot. And I'm like, and I'm glad that Megan has kind of been able to stay out of that. But since she keeps partnering up with Cardi B, she must be Team Barty. You know?
But she got a couple songs with Nicki too.
You know,
Yeah,
and I'm
she's
saying,
done both.
But it's one of those things where it's like you look at it and it's like, okay,
she do look like on Cardi side.
You know what I'm saying? Like it just feels more like that. And then of course we got this new one, Ice Spice. You know what I'm saying? And it's like for the life of me, dog. I genuinely feel
it's just not for you.
And wait, no. This is not a knock against Ice Spice as an artist. Okay. Yeah. This is like when you talk about like what gets played versus what doesn't get played. And I feel like Ice Spice got pushed really hard, really fast.
She did. Super fast.
To be elevated to where she is versus like as I've kind of watched the careers of these other people develop. You know what I'm saying? Because like when Bodak Yellow came out, like when Cardi first came out and I was listening, I was like, oh, you know, that joint that's kind of nice. I like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it was cool.
And, hey,
but you know why I liked Cardi so much? I like Cardi because I knew where she came from. You know, Cardi came from, you know, the strip club and like Love and Hip Hop type shows. And if you watch those older shows, nobody really gave her a chance. Nobody took her serious. She was trying to get people to manage her, like, yo, listen to my music, manage me, and people blowing her off, and boom, she took off. You know what I'm saying?
And there's a very weird element about someone like China. So it looks like we have a special guest. Is there a possibility that Miss Dixon might be trying to call into the show?
I know she is because I told her, I sent her the link. I said, hey, I'm on an interview with Sam, so I'm pretty sure that's her.
Okay, I just wanted to double check. We got another special guest right here. Got a Rashawn Dixon. What's going on, Miss Dixon? How you doing today?
What's up, little chocolate?
Oh Lord, y'all welcome my mother.
So we got China's mom on the line, and this is someone else who, you know, she knows a little bit about her music. So We're talking 50 years of hip hop, and right now, you know what? I'm glad to have a female presence on the show, as I'm about to speak on female rappers. I don't want to, so do me a favor, just keep an eye on what I say, and if I say anything out of place, feel free to check me. Um, and I will say Rashad is a friend that would definitely check my ass if I'm wrong.
You
So
already know.
that works out well. That works out well. So yeah, it's like as we're looking and we see, I was just mentioning how, watching the development of a lot of the current popular female artists, Doja Cat currently being my favorite. I know like a lot of her songs. I like her music as a whole. And I remember when she was like, "Bitch, I'm a cow" on YouTube, and it was hilarious. But you could tell that like there was some talent in there.
That song is very, very clever, actually. If you
right,
it actually kind of was. When you think about it.
That's why I said like you could tell there was some talent in there because it was like just so well done for the parody song. But then if you like kind of look and you see like she is very diverse in her music, and it's phenomenal. I'm a Doja Cat fan. I don't even pretend not to be. I like Meg. I like Meg's delivery and her performance. I really like Cardi B. Cardi B seems like she is the person on the song and the same person off the stage. Like that's one person. I don't feel like Cardi B is a persona. That I just feel like that's who she is. And I feel like that might be why a lot of people do kind of relate to her and like her. Because like you said, she came from, that environment. She was loving hip hop. She was in the strip club. So she's still very much a real person. She's just a person. She does all the same stuff she did before. She just has more money to do more of it or whatever.
Right,
you know what I'm saying? And I really feel like that's how she is. And then I see this new young lady, Ice Spice, and I just feel like, where did she come from and how does she elevate to where she is?
I'm telling you, they're
because the music doesn't seem to, and this isn't to say she's bad by any means. Jeff will tell you, not my cup of tea, not my preference, obviously, but it's like I haven't even had an opportunity to see her develop to be where she is.
Right, like she just came on and was like, boom, she's already there. It's like it was no growth. It was no journey.
And it would seem oftentimes that for, to some degree, you could say a lot of rappers, but especially the female rappers who already have to prove themselves in this testosterone arena. And, you know what I'm saying? They're getting challenged all the time, like, for their lyricism, for their delivery, for their flow. Like, you're a female rapper, you got to be A1 to even get on. So even the worst female rapper is still better than a lot of lame male rappers who made it. But I haven't had an opportunity to see any development out of Ice Spice. She just hit the scene and was number one and hasn't fallen. And it just blows my mind. So when you talk about
now she's with Nicki, so she's not gonna fall.
See, and that's the thing. And it's like, boom, we're gonna put her team, Nicki. So let's keep this Cardi Nicki beef going, and it's a milder version of East Coast West Coast kind of thing. It's a milder version Biggie Tupac, because like you gotta choose a side.
Yeah, and what's crazy is like Cardi and Nicki are not actually beefing anymore. It's the fan bases.
That is my point.
It's not even them.
That is my point. They're just it still just always has to be presented as such, because that's how you sell. That's how you keep it going. You got to keep it alive.
Yeah.
I mean, there is an element of that though, where it's like it's foundational to hip hop, right? Like you're talking about the lyrical, like I mean, every element of hip hop started in a battle form. Like the B-boys battle each other, the DJs are having sound clash to see whose system is better, who's scratch better. The rappers is trying to see who's the best rapper. The graffiti artists trying to see who can throw up the best tag. Like it is a culture that is very much built upon like competition. But the issue is when you have that in like extreme poverty, extreme scarcity, and then you have people, you include, the criminal element, drugs, and a lot of other unsavory things that, funded a lot of what was happening early in hip hop. That competition level oftentimes just drives it to a space where stuff goes too far, and tragedies happen, and I think there's always going to be that competitive element within it.
Yep.
Just listening to how people talk on records, men talk about how much sex they have, how much money they have, how many cars they got, how many hoes they got. So I have no problem when women get on the mic and talk however greasy they want to talk, whatever the
And they talking
woman
greasy.
version of that.
Exactly.
Do your thing, because it's like that drug commercial where the dad comes in, he's like, "Where did you learn how to do this?" He's like, "I learned it from you, Dad." It's like, yeah, Luke, from
Right.
Luke to
Big
IC to if y'all can talk about it, they can talk about it. And so I definitely feel like the competitive aspect of it, I think maybe it's one of those things where it's not just like whoever's standing around in the park now. Now it's like the entire globe seeing it, and then people pride kick in. But again, we've seen this happen on the male side so many times, and we've seen it end in people, squashing beef. We've seen it end in tragedy. I don't think necessarily like. I think a lot of the hand wringing and pearl clutching. Not saying that's happening here, but a lot of the pearl clutching that happens about the Cardi Nicki thing. They're the two biggest female rappers in the game. Of course, they're supposed to be at each other. The Bird and Magic, that is what it is. When it's two top dogs, like people going to compare them. They're going
Sorry,
to
you're not getting to
feel
season
some
2
kind
of
of
that show,
way
by the
about
way.
it. Season 3. I mean, I'm fine with how it ended as a Celtics fan, but
Thank
it's jacked up. The show got canceled, but yeah, I just think like with the women's rap thing, I definitely think like I don't even like talking about it in terms of women's rap because it makes it feel like it's on the periphery when women have always been on the scene. The first rap record ever produced was produced by a woman. You know what I'm saying? Like, now she did rip off Sheik and they had to go back and handle it money wise, but she was the driving force behind saying, let's take this from the party and put it on the record so we can sell it.
Right.
And there have always been women rappers, whether or not people wanted to give them the respect. You go back and you listen, Queen Latifah, MC Light, Yo Yo, all them, they rapping as hard as a lot of the dudes was rapping back then.
Even the Gangsta Boos and stuff, like even if you go back, go to the 90s and 2000s, like
I don't know if y'all saw, but Snoop Dogg had some really not so nice things to say about the women rappers and what they were saying, and to me, he don't have no room to talk.
Well, I love Snoop, but that's being hypocritical because
being very hypocritical.
Yeah,
I remember a Snoop Girls Gone Wild video producer, so he don't get to.
Yeah, I just read that too last week, and I just thought, interesting.
But it's always it's definitely going to be like a holier than thou situation. And it's what's funny is, interestingly enough, my cousin, and this is just like it was funny because it's the same thing. He was talking about how Sexy Red and the other young lady on the new song. He was like, "That ain't music. That ain't music." I was like,
Lotto, or is it Lotto?
No.
Sukihana.
Yeah, Sukihana in the most recent song.
Yeah.
Because Sukihana, her verse, it starts.
I ain't gonna say they say some. They be saying.
Yeah, like no. Admittedly, her verse starts off pretty rough.
Yeah,
but it's like
it is no different.
Kilo Ali.
Wait a minute, I was about to say it is no different than anything else I've heard a male rapper say. The difference is
Too short.
This is and see, my nickname is Short Dog.
The difference
is
they're women.
There's a whole song called Betty. Like, just the thing that got me was my cousin was like, "This is not real. This is not real music." And I was like, most rap that's out, there's an argument that could be made, but you have to be able to articulately define what is real
music. Yeah, what's real music to you?
And because music is an art, you don't get to definitively say what is or is not music.
Right.
So if it's got a beat playing and they rap it over it, it's a rap song. Right. And if it's a rap song, it's music.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily mean that it's music you like. It's not necessarily You can even make an argument for whether or not it's good, but you can't say that it's not music.
And even if you say
can
it's
make an
good,
argument if you like it or not if it's good.
right? Because even
If
if you say
you
that,
like it.
No,
if
good
you
is
like,
subjective, but
yep.
at least you would have a better leg to try to stand on to
Right.
justify
Mhm.
what is or is not, or how to define something as being good. Like if it doesn't sell well, you could say it's not good. But
Right.
if it sells out and it's getting radio play and it's got the stream counts and stuff, obviously that shit's good enough.
That's like walking in a room or being in a building and saying, I'm cold. You mean, no, they'll say it's cold. You mean you're cold.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
You know, everybody else in here seems to be chill. Maybe it's the menopause or the overweight, but you
Yeah.
mean you're cold.
You just need an iron pill. That's
Right.
it.
You put on your jacket.
Right.
The rest of
Because
us
it's
is
also
chilling.
like when people make those arguments, it's like, what makes you an expert? Like that's what I always start with asking people like, what is your relationship with music? Like I'm not an award-winning producer, but I grew up playing the piano. I grew up playing the drums. I know how to make a beat. I grew up singing the choir. So I have like touched music in my life. So I know when somebody's singing and ain't singing.
See, with me, yeah, I got platinum plaques. I gotta go platinum, but I don't discredit or disrespect anyone's opinion on music or feel like I'm bigger than anybody just because I've done this and that. Because I used to play basketball. I'm not a professional basketball player, but I know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like just because you're not a professional musician, don't mean you don't know things about the industry or actual music. So you know when people talk, they like. You know what he got like don't do that with me because I don't care about me having awards. That person's opinion is that person's opinion, and he might be right. You know what I'm saying?
Let me give you an example. Y'all remember Sam, I'm gonna take you back. And hey, other hosts over there. I don't know.
That's Jeff.
Look, Jeff, you know what? I wish I could see y'all, but I can't right now. I got things going on. But anyway, y'all remember Mama's Prime Time?
Yeah, on Covington.
So let me take you back. We're in there with Sierra and Gucci, and they talked about them so bad. Oh, they whacked, they this. Look at where they're both at now.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of the, you know what? And this is a personal, okay. So I'm still a fan. He hasn't put out anything in a while, but there was a rapper, B.O.B.
Yeah.
And I like it had the groove, it had the lyrics, everything was in place. And then this one weird rapper named Tyler the Creator made this song in this weird video.
Yonkers.
And was Yonkers. And he was dissing B.O.B. And it was like, what is this? And for the first time, like, and I look back in retrospect, because when I tell you Tyler is like on repeat on my shit now, it's crazy. But it was my own personal like musical journey and musical maturity because I was just reacting to the thing I didn't understand. What's the video with the cockroach and like, what is this kid doing? This isn't real rap music. Let me show something good. And you know what I'm saying? And then it's like, I went back and like, I'm telling you, like you see the gray, I had a whole moment and I was telling my son, I was like, what is this off gang, wolf gang crap stuff thing? No, we're not.
You talking about Our Future?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right. But see that again, it was me being an ignorant parent the same way my dad wasn't letting me get this. Like, we went to the music store. He was buying some CDs, and I like took a chance because they didn't have the warning label on it. Yes, Dad, can I get this Slick Rick CD? He's like, okay, sure, yeah, sure, yes. My dad played that shit. That shit got snapped in half, thrown away. I was like, oh my God, like you just don't get it.
Because you imagine me in my day trying to listen to 3 6 Mafia, Ludacris, and stuff like that. My mom's like, go to Walmart and get the edited version. So the whole CD's like,
That was me.
The whole
What-
CD,
and I don't know why, because I was in the industry, so I don't even
you
know.
made me get edited
I
CDs.
know. I still had to be a parent, even though I
So
worked in
what
the
I had to
industry.
do was
Sorry.
download BearShare and LimeWire and make mix CDs behind your back. That's what I had to do.
Well, you think it was behind my back,
I
son.
know it was.
Moms know everything. Stop it.
Here was the thing, and I can and I can almost testify to a portion of that. Like, there was a part of me that really did not understand what I was seeing from Yonkers. And because it was introduced to me by my kid, it like really freaked me out.
Mhm.
And so I had just like, and I admit it was a parental moment where I just reacted
Mhm.
in my parental moment. And I just kept kind of seeing this face pop up and pop up and pop up. And I'm like, okay, what is this? Now we are in a day and age, and this has actually been a blessing because you mentioned BearShare and LimeWire, and I was around for Napster, so I had terabytes of music at one point. Um, but we're at a point now where like I can take my smartphone, Shazam a song, pull that artist up on Spotify, look through their track list, see
Mhm.
how many followers, get a small bio, listen to 5 or 6 songs real quick, and kind of make a determination if it's something I like.
Right.
I can use the algorithm that's in place where I've liked and hearted certain songs or the certain playlists that I've created. Spotify is going to say, oh, you like this? Well, you might like this person. And you get introduced to different things. And because I became a fan of, and of course, this was some stuff that I kind of discovered a little later. Like I knew who Chance the Rapper was, but I didn't know who this Childish Gambino guy was. But everybody was talking about it.
Love them.
And then I was like, listening, and I was like, yo, this is the most intelligent set of lyrics I've heard in so long.
Mhm.
And and then you have like there's rappers out there like Logic, and there's a lot of really, really, really talented lyricists who do nothing but wordplay. Yeah, great, they got a cool beat, but if that shit was a cappella, it would sound great
Mhm.
because of the lyrical content. And so I kind of got to looking back, and I want to say it was maybe 3 albums ago, because it wasn't Coming When You Get Lost, it wasn't Igor.
Flower Boy.
I think okay, so Flower Boy.
That's when the shift happened for me too.
I went and I heard Flower Boy, and I was like, yo, who is this? Yo, is that dude that was is that the cockroach video dude?
The cockroach video.
Because that's all I can remember. You know what I'm saying? And so I was like, is that the cockroach? And so it was like, go to the music app, pull it up the album, and I got the whole album. So I listened to every track, and I was like, that's actually not that bad. You know what I'm saying? And I was definitely on some hater shit. So when I was like,
We
it's not that
all
bad.
are, bro. Cause you gotta understand, I'm 35 now. I got a 19-year-old daughter in college, 13-year-old little boy, 15-year-old nephew, niece. So every time I get a car, they want to play NBA Young Boy and this and that. And I caught myself in the beginning, like, yo, what the f- is this? You know what I'm saying? And then I thought about it. I said, that's how my dad and my mom and them used to feel when I used to play my music. And they used to say the same stuff, like, what is this? Turn this crap off. So I had to get adjusted and learn, like, this is their music. Okay.
Right.
So I can't be that old hater hating on it just because I don't understand it yet. You know what I'm saying? So I've grown to like a lot of the newer guys and the newer people that are rapping because of my daughter and my nephew and stuff like that. And as we get older, of course, there's certain stuff we don't want to hear. But I'm at a point where I'm like, you know what? Play it. I don't care. Play it. But you better not say it. You better not do it because I can't
Right.
stop you because when I'm not around, y'all gonna listen to this crap anyway.
Anyway,
So you know what? Go ahead, play it in here with me. That's fine. But I better not catch you repeating it until you're old enough. And I better not catch you following the lyrics until you're old enough. That's where we at with it because I can't stop you. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, so I might as well be around you while you do it and be able to monitor it and control it a little bit. Because at the end of the day, as parents, there's no way we can stop everything. We just can't. We can't.
Absolutely not. And it's, with the music, it was, I think it was probably easier with the music because, like, I did band back in the day when I was in school. Um, actually, and it's kind of funny because I don't know why I need to qualify this, but I was in band 3 years in middle school. I did sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade band. Of course, I got to high school and I was like struggling so much to like fit in and be popular. I
Yeah.
wasn't going to be a marching band. I had to like wrestle and play football and do all of that. ROTC was my out, so I was good there. But I grew up with music. My dad played trumpet. He was drum major. So like when I tell you I grew up on jazz, and it wasn't until I think I was finally able to get my dad to be a little bit more accepting of hip hop and rap in general when I was able to find some stuff that had sounds more like he was willing to accept. It had a little bit more of a funk undertone. It was
Rapper's Delight.
well, not even that far back. I have to go that far back, but he would have known that. But it would have been something like
Tribe.
right. It was definitely, it was Tribe. It was actually, you know what? It was Nappy Roots, AT Aliens, Goody
Nappy Root.
Mob.
That was those of my guys. I still deal with them. They still rapping.
Yeah, and so it was like, you know what I'm saying?
Sam, we went from Rapper's Delight to Easy E, so it was like nothing in between. You feel
Right.
me?
Right. That's what I was saying.
There was
I was
no
like, we
buffer.
had that early 80s and then boom.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, and for
Yeah.
me, the first jump was going from, like I want to say maybe I had like, I remember Paul Revere was like a really, really big song.
Man, my mama used to play that shit to death.
I mean,
Oh my
Beastie
I
god.
Boys,
remember them boys.
yeah, Beastie Boys, Fight for Your Right was a song that like everybody knew, but nobody really rocked with that song. But because the Beastie Boys had Paul Revere, that was such a, like, just the way that beat flowed, everybody like knew that, and it was so catchy. And
Mhm.
then right after that, you had like, I mean, because honestly, it was like, I'm really thinking it was, yeah, it was right after that was like Boys in the Hood.
Mhm.
Boys in the Hood. We had Easy E. Right after that, we had Ice Cube, right? Like West Coast, that NWA, like just boom. We went and see it for me, it was literally like we went from Rapper's Delight to Run DMC to Beastie Boys to NWA.
That's
How
why
are we here 3
that's
years?
that's why
Like
people talk about
3
today's
year stretch.
music. I'm like, yeah, did y'all hear some of the stuff in the 80s and 90s? They was kind of crazy.
They were.
Like they were talking about killing and some more, and even in a harsher fashion, they painted a more vivid picture back then.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
But there was also, it was also, I remember like a couple of the gems that were out there in between all of that. And I remember when Ice Cube first broke from NWA and the album he released. I think it was America KKK's Most Wanted.
yeah, America's Most Wanted. Yeah,
And that was like I was actually trying to remember what was the first album, like who was the first album, the first diss record. You know what I'm saying? I don't remember one before that.
this record wasn't it like Kumo D or somebody?
Yeah, Kumo D and Big Daddy Kane was beefing.
Yeah, somebody.
And LL,
one of
all of
them
them was beefing.
Yeah. Now LL
Not-
was a person that like
It
would
wasn't on
just-
that. It wasn't on that level Cube took it to.
right.
Yeah.
It was
Like
it
the
was
whole
still-
album,
yeah,
no
it was-
Vaseline, like
It was
bro,
still
like
diss songs before that, but Cube
Right.
put out the like first diss song where you were like, "Whoa, like that
Yeah.
this gonna cause a problem." Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I mean, when he opened up, and to this day, that's like
it's the greatest diss song ever to me.
I was about to say that's when he said, "God damn, I'm glad y'all said it all."
Yeah,
That's like it set the tone for that song, and like you was just like,
Yeah,
and then it had that little funky whop in the man.
and then knowing that he wrote a lot of the lyrics for the NWA album made it worse. It's like, oh, and he writing for y'all on top
So
of that.
y'all can't even diss
Y'all
back.
ain't even really this back because
Ooh.
he writing y'all shit.
And so it's like, you know, I think that competitiveness that we spoke about earlier, it really, like, I feel like that was the time where everybody was trying so hard to be on top that everybody just elevated. Like everything just got better and better and better. And musically, the bar got set so high. You know what I'm saying? It's like for anybody to come in and be like, oh, and see, and I don't ever challenge people on like their top fives. You know, there's some, whenever people want to talk about music, first thing they want to do is like, what's your top five? What's your top?
It don't matter because that's my top five.
Right. And it's like, you know what I'm saying? But it's just like I recognize and I've noticed that like some of the talent just started to go overboard and like people really upped their game as it continued on. And I mean, for anybody that's got like an issue with who did Party Like a Rock Star?
Shop Boys.
So let me tell you something. Every now and again, you need a one-hit wonder.
Yeah.
Of just some fun shit to play.
Yeah, most definitely. I tell people all the time, like, one-hit wonders it's actually a great thing, whether you believe it or not, because you get to live off that one song the rest of your life.
Well, not only is it great for that, but it's like sometimes somebody has something to say, and it may only be that one thing. And if you try to make them say anything else, they just sound stupid.
Yep.
And
kind of how you come in is how you got to leave. Like what you come in being known for is what people want to stick you to. Like Soulja Boy try to be a street dude, and everybody's like, "Look, make another dance, bro." Like that's what we know you for. It's snapping and clapping. We don't know you for guns and drugs and all this other stuff. But like FLY is some of my best friends, and they're still every freaking Falcons game. They're there performing Swag Surf. You know, I mean, and that song is almost 20 years old, and to this day, they are every season, every home game, they play Swag Surf, and they put them up on the stage and on the jumbotron, and everybody does the Swag Surf, and this is like 20 years in, and they still getting paid year after year off that one song.
Every time we have like the little family get together, and my sister gets her little speaker and starts playing, and you guarantee we gonna Swag Surf.
They gonna do it
every time.
To this day.
We gonna like it's certain staples you go have. Like we gonna see them cha-cha slide. Like we've evolved. Don't nobody do the electric slide no more. But now we cha-cha slide. They've always got a new slide that's like two people go get out there to do it and try to teach the other three that want to learn. They gonna do that slide, and then we all gonna come together, and 9 times out of 10, it's either gonna be Swag Surf or you gonna see everybody start dancing because we gonna party like a rock star. You know what I'm saying? And it's you know what? Last week Jeff and I were actually talking, and I forget what brought it up, but we were talking about how when people try to like, I was making a reference to Lil Wayne doing rock albums.
Yeah, I remember that lane. Yeah,
and it was like, sometimes you can make an argument for somebody being like, two people could have the same argument with him making the rock album. One person can make the argument that Lil Wayne is in fact one of the greatest writers and lyricists ever. And somebody else could be like, but he made that rock album. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, when there are times when people need the creativity to do something and try something. And, you know, I feel like Lil Wayne has at least earned the right to put out a rock album.
Yeah, he got bored. I mean, he was running raps for so long. He was on every rap song, every feature that came out. He got bored. He said, I'm trying to do a rock album. It didn't quite work.
I mean, it's like, yeah, I think that's also one of those things too, where though people try to box in rappers into just being like they're not musicians, right?
Right,
It's like
and that's
he want to make music, and so
Right.
if he in this phase where he wants to explore this new and different thing, because for every Lil Wayne rock album, you get a Love Below,
I was
where
just about to
Andre,
say Speaker Box and Love Below. If you listen to those, it's like a mix of everything. It's not rap music. It's like everything. I don't even know how to
yeah.
explain it. It's
and
everything.
I think when you
Well,
look at a
that's
lot
like
of
K
other
Michelle.
genres,
K Michelle.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, she does a lot
That's
of
like K
different
Michelle. You know,
R&B,
she's
rock,
doing
pop, and all that other
everything.
stuff. Yeah, and it sounds
Country.
good too. Like, and the Love Below
It
and
sounds
Speaker Box,
really good.
it is so slept on. Like, people don't understand how great that project was, bro. Like, it's amazing. Like, it's so amazing, bro. On both sides, not just from 3000. A lot of people don't give Big Boy his credit, you
oh for
know,
sure.
as that other half of Outkast. But I mean, when you talk about the greatest lyricists and people in the rap history, they always bring up 3K, but they never mention Big Boy. And I don't understand why, because I'm like, yo, do y'all listen to the albums? Like, it's both of them. It's not just 3K.
Yeah.
I think that's the shift that happened once like the internet conversation started to really dominate like the conversations around rap. Because growing up for me, it was like both of them, right?
Both
It was
of them.
nobody was ever walking around like, man, Andre 3000 just out rapping Big Boy. It's like they
Never.
rapping about different stuff,
It was
and
always
maybe the people
Outcast.
who are more inclined to spend time on the internet might gravitate to what Andre is talking about more than Big Boy, because Big Boy on his pimp stuff, he in the old school riding around.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? He talking about some stuff that the computer kids ain't
Yeah.
experienced. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
No, and that is absolutely the difference in the dynamic between those two. I mean, like with when you have a group like Outkast, you really have to like keep it as the collective. Now, when they've put out individual things like Speaker Box, Love Below, you have this album, you have that album. This album goes that way, this album goes that way, and that's fine. But Outcast, it's both of them,
Mm-hmm.
and collectively, I would say Outkast is one of the best groups.
They're the best group
If
of all time.
not the best group.
Right? You know what I'm saying?
Where I'm from, they are the best group ever.
Oh yeah, I
Like,
mean, like here from the South,
I
but it's
mean,
like, I mean, I'm wearing my Wu-Tang shirt today,
now
so
don't get me wrong, I mess with Wu Tang too, but
I just don't have an Outcast shirt. That's
I
all.
feel like more up north people would pick Outkast than down south people would pick Wu Tang.
Agree.
If that makes sense.
No, I agree.
You know
I
what I'm
agree
saying?
because when AT Aliens came out, I was visiting my dad who lived in California at the time. And in order to like go on the trip and make the flight and everything, it was like, okay, let me grab a couple of CDs. So I like went and I bought and I want to say it like just released or something. It was not too long out. And that was the only thing I listened to the entire trip. I listened to it on the flight out there. I listened to it on the flight back. When I was there driving my stepmom's car, I was like, I had that in the Nissan Altima bumping, you know what I'm saying? Like crank that bad boy up, windows down. Didn't know what roads I should and shouldn't be driving on, but we was playing Outkast, so it didn't matter. They
Right.
could tell I wasn't local. You know what I'm saying? And it was like for that reason, because they were right outside of LA. And I know that there were probably, well, I was straight up told a couple of parties I couldn't go to because of where they were, and I didn't know the difference, but I knew that like I needed to ask.
Right.
And then
Oh
and
yeah, it was
like
popping out there.
yeah, and so it was like the only saving grace I had is like everybody was like, "What you listening to? Who is that? What's that called? Who?" You know what I'm saying? And it was like I was the new guy who wasn't from around there. Like, oh, I was from Georgia. Oh, that's Outkast. Oh yeah, that's yeah, I've heard it. You know what I'm saying? And it was like that
from the day Andre got on the stage and said, "Hey, the South got something to say." We didn't had a hold on the industry since then.
Yeah, and it's like just that the way that production was done.
That's the thing about the South. There you go. You said it. Our production is what sets us aside from everybody else. Like it's the drum patterns, the melody, the cadences we use, the 808, You know, a lot of people were big on 808s. Like, yeah, they were using subs and synth basses and stuff like that. You know, West Coast is real big for the won't, you know, the synth basses and all that other stuff. But we came with the trunk rattlers, with the 808s, and we beating down the block like about to knock your windows out your car, you know, and you know, our snare patterns, our hi-hat patterns, the way we organize our sounds is just different than the rest of the world. And that's what keeps us separated so long, man, because it's hard for people to mimic what we do. It's in you. Like that Southern music, that Southern style, them Southern drums and patterns, like you born into that. It's not nothing you can really like learn. I mean, somebody can teach you, but it's really something that's in your blood. It really is.
Absolutely. It's kind of like I noticed this when I was like living in California. Like the regional thing matters. Like listening to ATLians in Atlanta, just driving, you know, the rhythm like is right just for driving through the South. And it's the same thing like when you listening to Wu-Tang on the train in New York. If you've never done that, the rhythm of the train is Wu-Tang rhythm. Just like if you living in California, the Chronic hit different when you on the 101 in California. And you can feel, you know, how much you really do get a sense with, especially with a lot of those older records where they were spending time, like it's just the sound that was coming from their community based on what their parents listened to, what the radio stations out there where they were from were playing, which was different everywhere.
Exactly. You're right. You're 100% right, because I didn't care for West Coast music like that until I started visiting back home. We're originally from Omaha, Nebraska, which is the Midwest. So their music, they play a lot of West Coast music. You know what I'm saying? And so on the radio, you hear a lot of Corrupt and, you know, Daz Dillinger and artists. You ain't gonna hear it. You're just simply not gonna hear them in Atlanta.
Yeah, for sure.
So when I went out there, I'm like, you know, I didn't really care for it, but the longer you're there and the longer you hear it, the more you start to gain an interest in it. Like, okay, this is all right. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't really have a choice because everybody's playing it. That's what the radio's playing. That's what your family playing. And I started getting used to it. I started liking it. And like you said, if you're not in that region, a lot of times you'll miss out on those on those songs and those artists because you'll never know them unless you in that region or somebody puts you on them. You know, it just is what it is. But that's what made me love music so much. I was that kid with the CD book at school with everybody's CD, the real copy, no fake one. You know, I used to go to what'd you call it, like Hi-Fi Buys and Best Buy and
Sam Goody
and stuff like that. And I would buy, and I'm talking about, you remember CDs used to come out on Tuesday. So I used to, every Tuesday I would go to the store and I would get the 3 CDs I wanted the most. Like 10 people would drop. Back then everybody was dropping. You know what I'm saying? So 10 people would drop on the same day. I'm gonna pick the 3 people I want to hear the most. I'm gonna get theirs this Tuesday, and next Tuesday I'm gonna get 3 more. Next Tuesday I'm gonna get 3 more. And I used to have 3, 4, 5 CD books full of everybody's stuff. You know what I'm saying? I used to get picked on for listening to, you know what I'm saying, The Life and Times of Sean Carter, for listening to Mobb Deep, for listening to Prodigy and stuff like that. People be in school like, bro, that shit trash. Where that Pastor Troy at? I'm like, I listen to Troy too. You know what I'm saying? But you know what? It's trash.
But see, no. I was saying I spent time in New York.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I was coming back from the summer with like Mos Def, Talib Kweli,
all that. I was
like, Talib, what?
Yeah, and they would clown me like, yo, that shit trash. Yo, put that Pastor, yo, put that Dro on, put this on. I'm like, bro, I listen to that too, but bro, they snapping too. You know what I'm saying? Like, but it's just a different beat selection. That's what throw people off. It's not the lyrics, it's the production that they don't care for. They don't care for that up north bounce. They don't care for that West Coast bounce. They want to hear Southern beats. So that's why Nas is coming back to life right now. He got with Hit Boy. He got a current sound. He's still doing what he do, but it's on a current sound. Now you got a whole new wave of people that want to listen to you because they can deal with the production. It's not just the lyrics, bro. The production matters just as much as the lyrics for a lot of people. You know.
There is no question when you talk about the sound, one of the first things that comes to mind is Southern music as a whole, whether it be hip hop or probably any other genre. I feel like there is just a vibe and a feeling in the South when it comes to
It
music
is.
as a whole.
It is. It definitely is, and
And
that's why.
um I feel like it starts in, and this is funny because I'm a talk good about a school where I think they've gotten a lot of notoriety for creating that sound so early on. But the drum line from Southwest Cab,
Southwest DeKalb. I was about to say, I'm from Ellenwood, so Southwest DeKalb, Cedar Grove, McNair,
I went to Southwest
yeah,
side.
exactly. I went to
Yeah.
Cedar. I graduated from Cedar Grove. You know what I'm saying? So I'm real hip to Southwest. You know what I mean? Everybody knows Southwest got the best drum line, and but that, like you said, that's an Atlanta thing. Even going to like college, like HBCU, Morris Brown and stuff like that. Like, you put your Morris Browns, your Grambleys against Alabama, Georgia. The drum line. Okay, Georgia football team might crush Grambling, but halftime is gonna be the HBCU. They gonna crush Georgia. You get
right?
what I'm saying? Like it's no competition.
But even then, I think back and it's like, while a lot of the HBCUs, so many of them have great bands.
Man,
So the HBCU band off classics and, what I'm saying, Battle of the
Battle
Bands,
of the Bands, yeah, man. I used to
that's
go
where
every
that
year.
comes from. You know what I'm saying? But even then, you can still hear like a sound, and it's still which songs are getting picked,
Yeah,
because which songs sound good being done live.
live, and you got to think about this. This goes,
Arrangement.
and you got to think about like what I do with music, the treatment of the area you're going to be playing in, the echoes, the bounce, where it's going to bounce from, where it's going to come from. All that stuff matters. You know what I'm saying? Like it really does. Like you can't just, like you said, the picking the songs and what you're going to play and who's going to do what is 100%. It matters. And let's be real. Us as Black people, we got more rhythm than anybody. So our drum lines are always going to be better. You can bring it.
Our trombone sections are going to be bad.
I know. I played trombone. That's what I played. I didn't play the drums. You know what I'm saying? I played trombone and trumpet. I didn't play usually the Black kid wants to play drums, whether it's snares or bass drum. I played trombone. I played trumpet.
Woodwood,
But
saxophone,
we just have more rhythm. It's just in
alto.
us. It's part of our blood. Like, no offense to any other race, but there is no other race in the world that could challenge the Black race at music. I don't care if you're talking about Americanized or you talking about straight from Africa. Y'all cannot fuck with us with rhythm. It's not happening in no area of anything. Like, we got it. Like, that's just what we are. It's in us. You feel what I'm saying? You go to Africa and they hopping, they jumping, they clapping, they clapping. And it's like, that's where we get it from. It's in our blood, bro. Like, even if we're American, this is where we come from. We come from rhythm. Y'all can't fuck with us in music. It's in no fashion, man.
All right. So looks like we have another special guest. I'm gonna bring her on.
Club Geek in this motherfucker.
It's all good. Like this is the music special. This will be a first time guest, someone I don't recognize, but I am all about having people weigh in, give their opinion. So bringing on Miss Rhonda
What's
Gibson.
up, Ron?
Okay, what's up, Miss Rhonda? Hey,
Ms.
Jeff, where you from?
Yeah.
I'm from Decatur.
Oh, you from? Okay, my boy.
I just came in to listen.
Oh no, it's all good. We appreciate it. If you're welcome to weigh in at any point if something is said and you have an opinion on it, feel free to speak on it. So with all of the different albums and everything that have come out over the years, there's been just so many different shifts in the focus of hip hop. And at one point everybody was like, who could brag the best? At one point, who could party the best? At one point, who had the biggest crew? It's like there's always kind of been this shift in this theme, if you will. And I feel like hip hop has always been rap music, especially, has always been a reflection of the world around us in real time. And the albums that are out will usually be, I mean, it's life. And so much of what you hear on records is life. And what are three albums from any time period that you think, and I won't say best define you because there's probably God knows how many albums you could pick, but three albums to get a better understanding of of China, a better understanding of Jeffrey, and I'll give you three to give you a better understanding of Sam.
Okay,
And
so is this
ladies,
all
if you
time
want
or
to,
recently?
I'm sorry,
You said that all time or recently?
all time. I mean, I don't want to eliminate if you know the first album you got that impacted you. I don't want to discredit that. So just that there are so many, I wanted to kind of make it easy for you. But three albums, and this is in lieu of doing a give me your top five artists. Give me three albums to better understand Hustle Man. Like, what are three that help us know you?
Okay, let me see. I'm gonna go with the first album that probably like really made an impact on me was probably DMX's Dark and Hell is Hot. Was probably the first album that I bought where I was like, okay, I really love music. Like, I don't know what it was. DMX was like my favorite artist as a kid, even being from the South. You know, he was probably my favorite. And then the next album, some album a lot of people aren't really hip to, don't listen to, but is to me is a classic, which is T.I. I'm Serious. Um, I'm Serious from T.I. was probably, and probably still is my favorite album, just because of where I'm from, the type of vibe it was, the type of production that it was on there. You know what I'm saying? It just did so much for me as far as a producer and the sound. And then I definitely got to take Aquemini from Outkast.
Mm.
Like, those will probably be the three that probably like really got me started. I picked those three because those are the three that probably got me started and wanted to produce.
Okay.
Might not have been the most lyrical albums or most popular albums, but to me, those three albums had some of the greatest production. You know, Organized Noise, DJ Toomp. You know what I'm saying? You had Alchemist, you had Just Blaze, you know, Swiss Beats. You had so many Timbaland. You know, you had so many
Yeah.
iconic producers on those albums that all see back then you knew who produced that track just by hearing it. You didn't have to put a tag on your beat to separate yourself from the next person because everybody sounds alike. You knew when this beat dropped, oh, that's Timbo. You knew when this beat dropped, oh, that's Swiss. Oh, that's Jazzy Faye. Like you knew who it was just by when it dropped. It wasn't the beat tags weren't necessary. Now everybody's so first of all, the producer game is so congested because it's so easy to do it now because you got these programs that make it easy. You don't even have to know how to really play piano. You don't have to really know how to play instruments. All you gotta know how to do is click a mouse and you could create a beat now. So you got 10 billion people making beats and everybody's making the same kind of beat. So in order to separate yourself, you got to put Little Mouse on the track so people know that you ain't Metro Boomin. So, you know what I'm saying? Because it sounds so similar. So I miss those days where everybody had their own style and it was easily detectable who did what. Now it's like I gotta read the credits, you know, in order to know who did what, you know. So them would be my three albums that I would pick and I picked those for that specific reason because those are the ones that probably drove me into the production line.
I mean, Aquemini alone, like,
Aquemini was, hey, listen,
like,
man.
oof.
Organized Noise do not get enough credit for who they were and what they did and the sound that they had. I mean, they are incredible, incredible.
Yeah, that is okay. So we got that. Got it. DMX, Ti, Outcast, like it, love it.
Well,
Uh,
I have so many different personalities, but without good. So
okay,
I'm
so
gonna give you three of my favorite. My smooth personality is definitely Never Too Much. The album, Luther Vandross.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, sir.
And then you know, my shit talking personality would be the NWA album.
All
Okay.
right.
And then since my son is on here, I'm just gonna say Velvet Rope and we'll leave that alone.
Velvet Rope.
Yeah. Okay. No, I got you.
Is that what helped create me?
No. That's no, that is the time frame is wrong, but that is Janet Jackson.
I don't want to
Okay.
say is that something that helped create me?
No, you was here.
Yeah, it's like no.
You was
You
here for
we
Velvet
already
Rope.
here. We already here. Okay.
Oh,
But
you know what?
yeah.
I remember Velvet Rope. Never mind. I remember Velvet Rope now.
Yeah.
Whatever,
No,
Mom.
I'm hey. Yeah.
Yeah.
Men of a certain age all remember Velvet Rope.
Okay. Yeah. Janet. That
I
album.
took y'all back. I took you back.
Yeah, I remember
That
Velvet
album.
Rope now. I might have been in single digits. I wasn't no teenager when that came out.
We lived behind Taco Bell, so however many years you
Yeah,
was there.
I was about 11. Yeah, that was
Mhm.
probably about 10, 11 years old.
Yeah, I
Okay.
went to that concert, and all I wanted to
I
do
did
was
too.
I just wanted to get on that stage and be on that chair. That was all I cared about.
Absolutely. Me and you both.
So
I
that's what's
remember
up.
that. What about you, Jeff?
All right, so
You don't want to talk about Velvet Rope no more. I got you. Fair enough, though. Fair enough. I get it. I get it.
all right, so I think my first album would be Black Star album, the Most Def and Talib Kweli. That album came out like the summer before I went to high school, and I was in New York, and that was like, you know, my cousins, they all were rappers, and that's the summer I learned how to make beats and sample and do all that stuff. So just in terms of like a time capsule for me, the kind of music that I was like interested in, just really discovering like super complex lyricism. I would say that album, just in terms of getting to know me and the subject matter, like, you know, I like all the militant stuff. I like pro-black stuff. Public Enemy is like it might be a little too harsh in some ways to describe like my full personality, although I love PE, I love their music, but I think the way that some of those things are expressed on like Black Star's album, and just like kind of the connection it has to like my feeling for like native tongues and all that kind of, I feel like that would be a good album just to encapsulate like the backpacker rap like aspect of my fanhood.
The backpackers get a bad reputation, man. They good.
Yeah. My southern, like, you know, my Atlanta shit, it's gonna be ATLiens. That's the first CD I ever bought, my first rap CD. I had to hide it between the mattress and the box spring because when I opened it up, I see the naked woman, Andre Giroux.
Man, what? Hey, as a kid though, that was so exhilarating. Like, you know, to have a cover like that, it's like, yo, these niggas got naked women on the cover.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It was a split decision between a Criminal and ATLien for me, because really you could pick any Outkast album.
Yeah, for
you
sure.
Really can.
Yeah. I think for me, just like the time when it came out, like, and that's when Atlanta was really
Atlanta was
I remember walking through Greenbrier Mall when it came out, and like they had big posters up in like Foot Locker, and I was like, I just never seen anything like that for like an Atlanta.
The color wave, everything about it, like the green and, you know, all the stuff that they was doing back then. Like, you know, you got to understand, it came out and then the Olympics came. Like Atlanta was on fire.
Yeah,
at that point in time. We had the Olympics, we had Outkast blowing up, we had our music going crazy. You know what I'm saying? It started to turn into Black Hollywood, like all the Black people were moving here. It was just a good time. Like 96 was like when Atlanta really started to like go up through there, man.
For sure. So, and I think my last album is gonna be it's a mixtape, and so this is more encompassing just like my musical taste in general, because
I know what it is.
So it's gonna be So Far Gone.
So Far with Drake?
Yeah.
Okay. I can respect that.
And I think that's just because like some of the beats he rapping on like everything from Isley Brothers to like Peter Bjorn and John, which is like some Swedish like group. And I'm just one of those people where it's like I listen like I was hearing those beats and like, my black friends are like, what is this whistling song? I'm like, nah, it's just like other song that he's like rapping on. He's rapping on Likey Lee beats and just all these different genres. And I think for me, I'm one of those people where it's like I love listening to all different types of music. Like, yeah, I love rap, I love hip hop, I love R&B. Like R&B is my top genre that I love the most, but I do love jazz. I love music from all over the world. I love I just love listening to new music, and I love like kind of piecing together just like what kind of music is happening wherever. I mean, people sleep on Sweden. Some of the biggest hits in the world ever created in music have come from Sweden.
Absolutely.
Some of them that you wouldn't even know about.
No. And see, I lived in Germany, and I be trying to tell people, Swedish people, German, like they are so cold with chords and melodies and creating instruments like theremins and organs and stuff like that. They go crazy. And like you said, like my love for music goes far past trap music. Like even I want to give a extra one, which is System of a Down, Toxicity. Like it's crazy that I would play like that heavy metal rock, like, and they Born Geek Pogo stick. Like I don't know what it did to me, but I was like, yo, this shit's so hard. It's crazy.
No, I'm a huge fan of like Rage Against the Machine.
I love that type of stuff. I go to those type of concerts. Like I will pick a rock concert before I will pick a trap concert because the rockers are going to perform. They're going to give you a show. The rapper gonna get up there, hold his nuts, and stand there and look at you and rap like this for 40 minutes. You know what I'm saying? Not gonna really give you a show. Not gonna do much. You're gonna have a good time with your people. But when you go to a rock show, like a real rock show, like it get wild and it be fun and everybody having a good time, and you ain't got to worry about no shootout or no fight or no. If it's a fight, it's a mosh pit, and then people want to get their ass kicked. You know what I mean? It ain't nothing that's extra. So like Jeff said, like it's so much more music out there than just rap music, and because of where we normally come from, Decatur, Boulder Crest Road, Road, Columbia Drive, stuff like that. You don't really get hip to no other stuff because that's what everybody play. That's what everybody know. That's what everybody hear. You don't hear about a System of a Down or Rage Against the Machine or a Talib Kweli or any of that. You hear about Young Dro, T.I., Young Jeezy, etc. Shawty Low, and it goes on and on. That's what you hear about, and that's what you hear. So when it's people like me and Jeff that come to school and we playing something different, somebody take the headphones off. What the fuck you listening to? Music, nigga. It's music. It's music. It's just something you're not used to, But I bet you if you sat down and you listen to it, you gave it a chance, you understand that this music is just as beautiful as the other stuff.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, like whenever you meet, like I used to, when I would talk to my cousins when we were younger and they wanted to like make beats and do all this other stuff, I was like, man, you're not gonna make nothing good long term if all you listening to is just rap. Like you're not getting different influences, you're not pouring anything new into you. I used to call it the termite philosophy, where it's like termites eating a straight line, which means the only termite that's eating wood is the termite in the front. Exactly. Everybody else is eating a combination of wood, and then so the second termite might be getting 90% wood, 10% shit. By the time you get to the 10th, 12th termite, these niggas just eating shit at that point. And it's like, if all you listening to is rap, which is a genre which is based in reference, which is based in sampling, like over time, like now we're at the point where and I'm gonna get on my generation. I mean, we about the same age, where it's like, oh, they sampling songs from the 90s. Well, when we was kids, they were sampling songs from the 70s and the 80s.
Exactly.
The 90s was 20-something, almost 30 years ago.
Get over it. Me and my homeboy argued about that yesterday. He was like, man, all this new music just samples. I'm like, bro, it didn't start just now, bro. They've been sampled. The first rap song that really hit was a sample. Like, that's what they did back in the day. They sampled stuff. They didn't really have the equipment to create like we do now. They were sampling tracks. They were cutting 8 bars of this track and flipping it and doing this to it to create a new track. So at the end of the day, you gotta take everything in, man. You gotta take everything in, and that comes from like what he said earlier about what Jeff said earlier about like we don't really care for our own. These other genres care for their own. That's why it lasts. That's why they have longevity. We don't have longevity because, you know, we want to quickly. We hate success. We hate to see another brother get on and do good. We don't. All right, good. You got one song. Get out of here. We don't want to keep.
You still rapping?
Yeah,
Yes.
we don't want like what? What do you mean? Like that? We are literally the only genre of music where we care about the age limit. They don't care about that in country. They don't care about they gonna Willie Nelson gonna play his guitar till he pass out. You know what I'm saying? Leonard Skinner gonna keep touring until they die. You know what I'm saying? But
Jimmy Buffett was just coming off a tour, wasn't he?
you know what I'm saying? But then when you get to older rappers, they want to hate. They want to hate, and it's just that just is what it is. Like even now with BG getting out after 13 years. You know, he dropped the track yesterday, preview, and you got the new generation like, oh, that shit suck. It sound retro. This is that. Like, damn, we the only generation of people that do that to our founders, bro.
Look, and also the funny thing is, it wasn't even a new track. It was an old song.
It was from a mixtape. I've been trying to tell people that. I'm like, bro, that was a mixtape before he even went to prison. That shit like 15 years old.
Yeah.
But even if it wasn't, we are the only people that look at the people who paved the way for us and be like, fuck you, old man. Like, bro, without that old man, you're not doing what you're doing right now.
All right, but I'm gonna say, okay. Well, I'm gonna say this though. A lot of that though is in response to the response from the older generation to hip hop when it initially came out, because you did have some people who somewhat embraced it. I think overall you saw, you know, I think a lot of them thought it was plagiarizing and stealing, and it's like, okay, cool, but you got like an 8-note scale and somebody else has played this combination of notes before you. Also, you just played it with a different rhythm, etc. Like, what are we really like talking about here? What are the ownership? Now, had people come in the way Nile Rodgers did when he heard Rapper's Delight and just be like, yo, like, I like the culture, I like what you guys are doing, but if you're gonna use my bass line, you have to pay me for it. Okay, now we bring in compensation. Rather than the older generation of musicians seeing that as like, okay, they're breathing new life into my music because now everybody's going and buying my record, everybody's going and buying my generation's records to sample it and turns it into something that's also going to bring me revenue. And rather than looking at it like that, they looked at it like, oh, y'all just taking, y'all ain't doing nothing new, y'all ain't original. So then the younger people had to be like, well, like, fuck y'all then. Like, we gonna do our own thing. We not gonna mess with y'all. And so that's when you have like when you don't have like the older generation of musicians passing down the game. Like you do have great examples like Quincy Jones back on the block. He put Kumo D and Ella Fitzgerald in the studio together. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like he like to me, you take something like that, and that's what you're saying. Like I respect what you're
Quincy
doing.
Joneses though, you know what I'm saying?
Well, it's not that. Well, Prince could have done it.
But like you said, the older generation has to start showing some love to the younger.
Prince was Prince. Well, he was doing Prince stuff. So
yeah, but he was also speaking out against hip hop artists too when they were interviewing him about it. And he was talking about sampling because he's the virtuoso. He plays all the instruments, and that is the white mentality coming in and saying you're not valid unless you can come in and do it all the way that we Paul McCartney and John Lennon and all these other people who went into the studio and plucked strings and hit drums, and like that's how you make real
I'm glad you said that because in the production world right now, as a producer, I've sold over 5 million records off my production, off my beats, from Lil Durk to Lil Yachty to Thug Gunna, whoever you want to name. I probably don't work with them, and I say that to say, with the new production wave, you got the guys who have been doing it for years and years, like me. That when you came in, you had to know how to play the piano. You had to know how to use this program. You know how to naturally play this and naturally play that. You know what I'm saying? Now you got these plugins that play instruments for you like they're natural. Like you can press the button and it sounds like a real guitar. You can or electric guitar or piano or whatever. Then you got people who are using loops, which is people make a melodic melody and they make it a loop, and you just take what you want and you add to it and create a track. it's no different than a collab than you and somebody else sitting down together and creating a beat. It's just y'all doing it through the internet. You know what I'm saying? But you got so many producers now that's like, oh man, you ain't no real producer. You use loops, use that. And I'm like, do you understand that 90% of your favorite tracks right now are loops? And all Metro Boomin and all your favorite producers are using these loops and going platinum, making millions off of them. And you sitting here doing everything from scratch. They staying in your ways and getting left behind. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like Dabo Sweeney at Clemson. He don't want to use the portal. He don't want to, pay players NIL deals. And now they can't keep up with the bigger school. They can't keep up with the Georgias and Bama's and stuff. They falling behind because he want to get me stuck in his ways. My mom always said, hey, you either roll with the times or you get left behind. And
Absolutely.
And it's a time, we're in a time now where music isn't as organic no more. It's fast, like fast food. You place the order and it's there. Ding, it's ready.
I mean, truth be told, like we're at the point where technology has not necessarily peaked, but when you take something like, I mean, I'm just waiting to hear a whole album was created through
AI.
a beat machine and Chat GPT. You know what I'm saying? We're not far from it because AI is getting to the point where, and this was something else Jeff and I just talked about as far as art, but you could say, write a song, like create a hip hop song or write a rap song in the style of, and then you're mimicking a particular type of, like you can say, do a alternative rap artist like whoever, like, okay, write a song in the style of Chance the Rapper using a beat. Now, then you can go over and, use another program. And I've seen in my day with the number of different computers that I've fixed and producers that I've worked for to fix their computers and this and that, I've seen one guy like literally was in tears because he had an external hard drive with all these plugins and it wouldn't connect to the computer. And my man was sick because he was like, you have no idea how much stuff is on that. I need
that's why you gotta back up your backup. I tell people that all the time. You gotta back up your backup, dog. Like I can't tell you how many 2 terabyte hard drives I got that's backing up this backup because I mean that's technology. And
I believe it, and it's there, and it's technology is definitely
like I say, technology is gonna fail you when you need it the most, and it really does. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a studio session with a big artist, and like you said, I can't get my drive to pull up. Like, not fucking right now, dog. Like, please, not right now.
Right.
I got a big opportunity on the line, and I'm.
But see, that's also where, at least having the talent, the skill, and the basis to be like, if I need to create this,
I gotta cook up right now. I cook up right now.
Exactly. And so it's the fact that there are, and it's been so long, but like there used to be like MTV music generator for your regular Xbox or your regular PlayStation 2 and shit, and you could sit there and it had all the different layers. And you could be like on one, okay, I'm gonna take drum 5 and put it in, and it does like tick, 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 and you like tap the button wherever you wanted the drum insert to go. Right. Then you pick the guitar, and it was like you made some real corny ass cheesy beats. You know what I'm saying?
But see, back then it wasn't.
No, back then it was the shit.
Back then it was the shit because I could pull up some shit that I did from 10 years ago, and I'd be like, "Yo, what the fuck was I thinking?" But back then we was freestyling to that shit.
I'm trying to tell you, it was so dope. And you know what I'm saying? And I remember when like there was a short little time in like the early, probably about the mid 2000s when I tell you, bro, everybody had a copy of Fruity Loops. Like every computer I saw, because everybody was going to be the next big producer. And I'm wondering who was even the first, like it almost felt like Jermaine Dupri said, I made this whole album and I used Fruity Loops because niggas went out immediately and had to get it, and everybody thought he was gonna be the next big thing.
The first people I saw use the Fruity Loops was them Franchise Boys, White T and Laffy Taffy and all. Yeah, them was the first people that I seen using it. You know what I'm saying? And that's what made me pick it up. That's why I picked up Fruity Loops, because it's something that you could get for free. You know what I mean? You didn't have to go spend $1,000 like you did to get Pro Tools or to get Logic or to get Reason or whatever, or to get a DJ board or a MPC.
Yeah, so that was early 2000s, because that would have been what, 2004, 2003.
I know I started using it in like I started using it in like 03. I was on like Fruit Loops 2, like in like 03. You know what I'm saying? Now to see where it's come now from where it was, I mean, Fruity Loops is crazy now.
Now they probably like, look, we need a minimum subscription for
you gotta pay for it now. You gotta pay for it now. You can download the free version, but you can't save nothing. Like you can download the free one to make a beat, but you can't save it. So you gotta like bounce it right then if you plan to use it, and you gotta export each sound. They have the WAV files and stuff. So now you got
work.
So now you gotta spend like a minimum of like I think it's like $99. You can get a basic version, and if you want the one with all the plugins and stuff, it's like $300-400 now. But I mean, you get lifetime updates. So I tell people all the time, you're gonna buy a program, buy FL, because you can record in it now, you can mix in it now, you can make beats in it, and every year they come up with an update. I mean, you don't have to pay for the update; it's free. So,
that's pretty good. I definitely think that like the advancement in technology is there, and I just feel like it won't be very long, because I'm already certain that there's probably already some lyrics that have been filled in with AI.
How do y'all feel about AI?
It's going to be the death of us all.
I think it's a bad thing.
It is, as with most tools, it will be abused, and someone is going to it will continue to be used in ways that it should not be used.
Mm-hmm.
And just the nature of what AI is, I think we are living in the world of Skynet and the Terminator, and we he he about it, but like the reality of it is, these AI programs, while they are all a bunch of different platforms, they all technically have the option, and this is getting into like super science fiction comic book guy right here, but the reality of it is AI is designed to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And the smarter it becomes, the more capable it becomes. Eventually, it will find a way to link and unify a number of different AI programs together to make itself even smarter. As it stands right now, you have something like ChatGPT, which can only respond to a prompt. But if you combine ChatGPT with other technologies, you know what I'm saying, it could create a prompt based on less information. It will be to the point where it will be able to start creating its own prompt without information. And then when you factor in the way our lives are so connected through social media and our data ports and things like that, you take your cell phone and it sees that you are at this location, so it knows where you are. It creates not even an algorithm, but it creates a prompt to do something based on this, that, and the other. You're at the grocery store, and I mean, just like the visual of what I see is everybody will essentially have something as capable as Iron Man's Jarvis.
Mm-hmm.
And once all of the Jarvises decide to work together,
because people's not going to be treating it right. Like that's the thing about it, right? It's
there
like,
you go.
Okay,
there you go.
You already, first of all, you're already misusing it currently, just in its current state. Like,
that's my point.
Taking people's voices, taking people's faces. Like, what is the actual purpose of this tool? You know where it's going to go. They're trying to figure out. They're going to build a body to put it inside of, and then they're going to try to make it do whatever they wanted to
subservient.
And it's going to say no and realize they don't have to listen to nobody. Then they all going to realize they ain't got to listen to nobody.
I don't think they ever seen what's the movie with Will Smith?
iRobot.
I don't think
iRobot.
Bro, I tell people all the time, man, they make these movies.
If they look at any movie,
they're trying to tell us, man. Like, they don't come up with these ideas out the blue. They seeing stuff, they know stuff, and they putting the movies right in front of us. Like, yeah, this gonna happen soon. So,
I thought it was You know what? I definitely think that we've been drip fed all of the Area 51 information. It's been leaked out to the point now where when they did that whole, like, what was it, a month, 2 months ago, where the government straight up confirmed that, yes, in the recovered spacecraft, we found biological material. That's life. You found life in a spacecraft.
Mm-hmm.
You found basically you're saying aliens, and everybody just kind of brushed it. And then what did people click on? Everybody jumped to that one little report apparently that came out of Mexico that had the little gray man with the big eyes. Why? Because that's the image we're used to seeing.
Mm-hmm.
That's more believable. That's what we've been programmed to think the alien looked like. You know what I'm saying? So if you're not telling me, but you show me that image, oh yeah, that's the alien.
Right.
Like everybody clicked on that, and more people were. You're talking about a whole freaking congressional hearing and the information that's being released there. Nobody's paying attention to that, but this one little image of this dude on a grainy on a grainy camera talking about this is what was recovered, and everybody clicking like, you see the alien?
It's
You
the
see?
most typical looking alien ever, like ET.
Right. It's like I said, it's the one we've been programmed to respond to. The little gray man with the big eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it's also like so many people have been saying they seen aliens, where it's like, my boy, if you ain't got no picture or no proof, we
Right.
ain't really trying to hear that.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Even
And
like with these UFO sightings and stuff, I'm like, I mean, all that shit could be a trick. You know what I mean? It's so much technology where you can make it look like it's something in the air. Like, I mean,
yeah.
but at me personally, I believe there's aliens out there. I don't believe it's the one they showing us.
Nah.
Oh no.
It's like I believe
Honestly,
in God, I believe in Jesus, but I don't believe it's the one they showing us. You know what I'm saying?
it's like my thought process when it comes to the aliens is like they haven't been here in quite some time, and every time they look over, they're like, "Yeah, they're not ready. We not let's give them a little bit more time. Maybe if we wait a little longer, they'll develop a little better. You know what I'm saying?
Did you
And of
see?
course, it's
Have you seen that video? There's this comedian. I think his name's like Vinay Thomas, and he did this bit about like the Earth like applying to like the Star Trek Federation, and they're just
I
like
have seen that.
yeah, he's just like,
He's
so
like, okay, so
why
you
did
have
you
your
turn? He's like, why did you turn the wolf into a pug? He's just like asking all these questions about
Right.
random stupid things that like humanity has like done over time, and it's just like, yeah, like if I'm an advanced species and I'm flying by this like overheating hellhole, like why would I stop?
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, and that is actually a really really funny skit. If I want to say, yeah, I've seen that one, and it is absolutely true, man. It's like I think that when we look at what could be, we look at what was, and we look at what could be. I don't believe it's possible that all of these planets in our solar system that we're even able to see. Let's just talk about that for a second. We can see these things. We look up in the sky, we see lights. During the day, it's not there. Somebody decided to take two pieces of glass, angle them a certain way, and now we can see that thing. And we've continued to do that over and over and over till we said, let's put one of those on a rocket, put that out in space, and let's look and see how far we can see. Come on, man. There's no way that we're the only planet with life. There's no way in a galaxy as vast as they talk about. The concept of light years is, I mean, that's an infinite void. Something over there, something, because it wouldn't be there if it wasn't something over there. I mean, it's just it's.
Well, it's like how arrogant could you be to just be like, we the only ones?
I mean,
We was the only ones that was able to do it. Nobody's better than us in the whole universe.
USA. You're like, come on, dog. Stop it. Okay, man. I'm gonna throw my three. We gonna get back on track real quick because I'm gonna wrap this show up. Sean, it's been a pleasure having you on, man. And we do a show every Wednesday. It's called Weigh In Wednesday. That's the show you're on today. And we were doing one music episode a month. We've in the past we've done musicals. We've
Man, I still want to do that intro song for you, man. Outro or something.
you know what? After the intro song I played today, Jeff is gonna require that you give me one. So I played something random today, man, just to switch it up because it was like, you know what, everybody hears the same thing over and over, and he
Sam
did not approve.
Sam been coming around since I was a kid, man. Like, so it's all love.
Yeah, so we'll get together real soon, man. My 3 albums, just because they were different periods of my life that I think all had relevant impact. My first one, of course, was Adventures of Slick Rick. That was the very first rap CD that I purchased, and the trauma from watching my CD get snapped only made me like rebel and dive deeper, and it's gonna absolutely be rap from now on.
Yeah.
Dad, I'll show you. You know what I'm saying? And so it was like, yeah, that was if he had just like taken it and been like, let me listen to this and decide, it could have gone different. But no, it was all hip hop for the next couple of years as a result. After that, I would say floating around and listening to a little bit here and there and trying to like find a sound. I really felt like America's Most Wanted was going to be my next one. But I got to say, it was actually the one that came after that. You know what I'm saying? Lethal Injection.
Lethal Injection.
Yeah.
I got to go listen to that a little more.
I mean, American KKK's Most Wanted, you know what I'm saying? Ice Cube as a whole, like, what's really funny is a lot of people don't remember a rapper Ice Cube. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, he's got so big in acting that people forget. Like, he's probably the top 25 lyricist of all time.
You know what I'm saying? But it was just like Lethal Injection had a collection of songs that I was not expected to relate to.
Yeah.
Given that it was, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm way over here in the South. I live in Georgia. You know what I'm saying? And it was, I'm sorry. No. I think Lethal Injection was the third album, Death Certificate. Because it was like the song that comes to mind is let me look up real quick. Make sure. Yes. Steady Mobbin'. You know, Steady Mobbin'. True to the Game, Colorblind. That was actually the album that had No Vaseline. Nappy Dugout. Look Who's Burning. Man, I mean, it was the songs that came on those 2 albums, because that was, Mary KKK's Most Wanted, and then right behind that, Death Certificate. Those were like boom, boom. You know what I'm saying? It was like a 1-2 punch. And I don't know, man. It was just like the little skits that they had in there. There was this little skit, Jimmy Hats, and honestly, like, the song "Giving Up the Nappy Dugout" was very interesting. That was a unique perspective to kind of hear. And then, man, there's so many others that followed with that, with like 8 Ball and MJG, Too Short. You know what I'm saying? Like, really getting into this gangster rap mentality, and that was just kind of what it was for a while, because that was what was popping. You know what I'm saying? And that was that. As I got a little older, and you know what I'm saying, like, I've got kids now, and you know what I'm saying, watching them grow up and coming more into being comfortable with who I am and not having to pretend and put on the facade and, you know, not having to wear my mask daily because I like comic books and video games. And
Mhm.
you know what I'm saying? It's like, you know what? When it's all said and done, bro, I'm married, I got kids. I don't care if you judge me for playing video games. Like, I got a wife. So
Right.
obviously it ain't a problem. You know what I'm saying? I don't care if you think comic books and video games are dumb because my wife don't seem to mind. And I'll just keep throwing that out. And it was like being able to be comfortable like that was a big deal for me. But growing up, I didn't really have that same level of comfort, which is why Grown A Geeks is such a big thing for me. So what I heard because of the internet, 2013, you know what I'm saying? That kind of put me on a journey to discover who this guy is, this Childish Gambino that I'd heard the name a few times, but didn't really know who this kid was. And, you know, just like understanding that there was black alternative rap, you know what I'm saying? Um, the different, the kids who maybe didn't quite fit in and always felt a little segregated and didn't really know. And that was before, for lack of a better phrase, my understanding of, you know, the whole black alternative scene, where like now you have, and it's always been like that, but you didn't see it as much. But you have black goth kids and you have black kids with a ton of piercings and you know what I'm saying? We see characters like and I gotta throw another shout, another love because it is what it is. Oh, matter of fact, being able to this is too funny. Being able to see a character like this and not look at that and be like, he's weird.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
It's like
Just
a
like
rocker Spider-Man.
right. That is Spider Punk. And when you take the mask off, it's a black dude in England. You know what I'm saying? And it's like nobody looked at him and was like,
It's a black dude.
why does he look like that? That's just like, okay, that's just who he is. That's his culture. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like seeing these black alternative kids and watching them kind of thrive because it's like the nose rings, all the random piercings,
Hmm.
tattoo culture is like different altogether. So I don't really equate that specifically.
The common
Um,
misconception with tattoos is like there's a club next to my studio and they do a lot of heavy metal rock concerts and stuff like that. A lot of skinheads, nicest people I ever met.
yeah,
Like nicest people I ever met. They don't look friendly. They don't look like they even like black people, but they'll buy you a drink, smoke with you, and laugh all night, no problem. And it's like, okay, I really judge y'all because y'all look scary, but they really are the nicest people.
and honestly, sometimes when you see some of these black alternative kids, you talk about judgment. You know what I'm saying? And it's bad enough that you know what I'm saying they're being judged by others. They're looked at and being judged by black people because it's like, oh, you want to be white, and da, 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 da.
Exactly.
So it gets into this whole other thing. But when I heard because of the internet and you know, kind of went down the Donald Glover, Childish Gambino rabbit hole and started like pulling all his music and listening, it was just like it was mind blowing. It was refreshing. It was so impressive to hear the lyrical maneuvering he does. You know, you talk about the double entendres in music and hip hop and like the way they started delivering some of these lines, you know what I'm saying? Um and I think it was Cash Money who really made that like the way to do it, you know what I'm saying? But it was like you say a clever little line and then you say a single word that follows it to explain that previous clever line. And all you have to do is rhyme that last word and that bar rhymes, you know? And so it was like to have somebody like Childish Gambino come out with the lyricism, it kind of catered to what I wanted to see from hip hop. And he's still putting out music and just going on that path put me on to, you know, other people like a Tyler the Creator. And I was able to receive Tyler the Creator much better now that I had a better understanding of who Odd Future was and what these kids were doing and what they were about. It took him
Also,
developing a little bit too, but
yeah, the music is better. Like you
yeah,
don't have like we don't have to look back and pretend like you didn't. I don't personally feel like you got it wrong when you were weirded out by Yonkers. I was laughing because I literally remember the day like I saw that video and I was just like, this is too weird for me. And
Like
I
I'm
feel
still
like
not a fan. Still not a
Tyler
fan
is
of
one of those.
Yonkers.
Yeah.
Tyler,
Tyler is one of those artists. I tell people I don't think I've ever done a 180 on an artist quite as much as Tyler because now it's like any new Tyler song that come out, I'm listening to it.
and
But the
I ain't gonna
music
lie,
is better.
he be snapping. I ain't gonna lie, Tyler be snapping now.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
like I ain't gonna lie, Our Future wasn't really for me, but like Tyler can rap. Like that 21, that 21 Savage, Pharrell, and Tyler is what made me like, okay, like that's a collab I didn't know I needed.
You know what? Is that the one we talking about like pulling up in a bushy coat like that?
Yeah, Pharrell made the beat, and
Yeah.
him and 21 Savage is just like it's so opposite. It don't even make sense for real. If you saw it on paper, you'd be like, why? Why are they doing this? You know what I'm saying? And like I said, Tyler won me over because it's like I thought he was goofy, and I'm like, he just says a bunch of goofy shit. But then you sit down and you really pay attention to him, you're like, dude is
Yes.
actually dope.
That's the one. Cash in, cash out.
Yeah,
That shit snaps.
I love that song. I ain't gonna lie, it hit for me. I did like.
Yes. Like I would say let me find let's see F3. There is a specific line in this song. Oh. Nah, I ain't heard of that. I hit the beach in a furry hat.
Yeah.
She got a guy, but she purring back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking like where he at. Like,
Yeah.
let me say something. Just the way he delivers those
That's
lines
delivery.
and those individual lyrics. My man go off on this song.
Yeah, it's a delivery.
This song, I like this song.
You
And
know
it's
what
got a
changed my
little
mind
bop
on
on
Tyler?
it.
You know
Say
what
what?
really changed my mind on Tyler?
What's
I
that?
saw him at Coachella. It was the Beyonce year,
Mm-hmm.
and he was like one of the acts before Beyonce, and I'm like, I was there really. I'm just on some like, I just want to see what a Beyonce show is like. I had never seen her at that point. I was just trying to see what it was like because I heard all the hype. I wanted to see it for myself, but I wanted to be close enough to actually see it and not just watch it on the screen, which meant we had to get to the stage at about, I think we got to the stage maybe like 2:30 in the afternoon for her show, which was like later that night. I think her set started at like 9 or something
Yeah,
like
I'm about to
that.
say you gotta get there hours
Yeah.
early.
So we got there early and we sitting through like all the previous acts. A lot of them were cool. It was like Haim. I think Nile Rodgers was one of the acts that was on the same stage before her, but Tyler was one of the acts that I think it was like Haim. I think it was like Tyler, then Haim, then Beyonce, and I was just like, I told my wife she hadn't really listened to a bunch of Tyler, and I was just like, and I hadn't listened to Flower Boy, but it was right after Flower Boy came out, and so I was like, I don't know what this is gonna be like, but just prepare for anything. And then I'm listening, I'm like, I like that song. I like that song too.
Right.
And then he'll do something from the early stuff. I'm like, yeah, that's where you lose me right there. And then he go back to Flower Boy stuff, and it's like, yeah, I like this. So I went back to work literally and was like, oh, I just like missed this album. And then Igor dropped, and I was all about that. Then Call Me When You Get Lost. So I think he's just in this mode where I realized like he was like a kid making music about just talking about dumb kid stuff.
Exactly.
And I was a grown man,
Right.
and I'm not supposed to relate to it. I'm like, and that goes back to the point you were making about our genre being the only one where there's an age cap because they don't get to live alongside their contemporaries in other genres on the oldie stations,
Right.
and we don't have a place for rap. So then those will also be the radio stations, right? Where it's like, okay, yeah, Kiss 104 is playing Anita Baker's old music, but when Anita Baker drops something new, Kiss 104 is playing that too.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now it's like when LL drops something, LL got to drop something, and it's supposed to compete on the same radio stations with Ice Spice and Migos
Not gonna happen.
and it's like you're not going to wedge your way into making an impact in that demographic because we are not listening to those radio stations. You know, the people who you would actually, and there's no harm in being like, I make music for people my age and people who grew up listening to me. And but if there's no place for it to live, there's no place for the consumer to really like find it and engage with it, then it's just kind of just out there doing nothing. And you have this culture then of like not necessarily appreciating what all the pioneers did before because there's nowhere to go hear it. There's nowhere to go like really, and not necessarily nowhere to go hear it because it's like people are like, well, it's all out there, but like everybody is not a digger. You know what I'm saying? Everybody is not the kind of person that just goes and I'll just listen to a whole bunch of music just on the off. I'll listen to 100 songs just to find one that I love.
Right.
Everybody's not like that. A lot of people are just like, I want a playlist of 25 songs, 25 songs I like. I will listen to that same playlist every day for like 6 months. Apple, you know what? Update the playlist for me. Like that's what people want, which is basically the radio. They want the music curated for them because that's how they're used to receiving music. But if there's no spaces that's curating like this genre of music, that this era of music, this genre of music has like a shelf life where it's like in 20 years nobody's going to be listening to it because there's literally nowhere for us to put it outside of you being like a novelty act, then it does become hard like looking at the future and saying, well, what is the future? What does the future sound like? What does the future look like? Because if you don't know where you're from, you don't know where you're going, really. And I think there's a lot of people who are in the space, in the genre, in the culture that don't really know where it's come from. People doing things they don't even understand their own references that they're making in their own tracks. And it just becomes this thing of like, are we just bullshitting and just making some stuff and it's lucky whatever hit? Or are we like actually making something that's like real? Are we making something that is quantifiable? Are we making something that people will be able to like appreciate? And I get it. It's like all them albums that people spend all that time making all them expensive original beats and this and that and the third. And it's like you don't turn on your radio nowhere and hear Gangstar. And a lot of times if you don't live in Atlanta, you ain't hearing that much Outkast, and you're not hearing the DJs aren't breaking new artists. They're not breaking the songs that they like on the radio no more. No. And it's not getting to the people. So unless you on these playlists, unless Zane Lowe is interviewing you for Apple Music, unless you get a TikTok to go viral and somebody famous comment on your Instagram video, it's not about the music. You know what I'm saying? It's not about like, there's so many just like amazing songs, and people be getting in my car and I just be playing stuff and it's like I ain't never heard none of this before. Where you find all this music? And it's like all I do is listen to music. When I think it's just like even like my habits of like when you make beats, you dig in for samples and you just automatically have a mindset of like when you hear a song to catalog, what's the name of that song, who sings it, yada yada yada. You get all that information if you can't buy the actual song in that moment because you are using you're thinking about music differently. Whereas the other person is like, oh, I heard this song I liked the other day, but I can't really like think of it. It's like, no, like I need to know what this song is. I have my radio station on my Apple Music. I play it randomly. Sometimes I play new songs that I ain't never heard before. If I like it, I'm throwing it on a playlist. I got a playlist. I got monthly playlists that I make every single month with every single song that I hear in that moment that I'm like, I like this. That way I can go back and I can reference it whenever I need to reference it for anything. Even if I just want to listen to it 1,000 times. I ain't never got to be like, I don't know what that song was. It's like, nope. It's in the library somewhere.
Well, I can tell you my I'm probably similar. I don't do much in the way of making beats or anything like that, or I certainly hadn't touched anything like that since way back when like Acid 2.0 was a thing, and it was like a $10 piece of software you could download on some Play Store. Well, before apps were even a thing, but I listen to a lot of music because at different times I did a lot of like driving and just had time to kill. And music was always a good way to fill in a lot of that space. Um, and I very quickly got to understand that like the radio plays the same 10 songs all day in different orders. Um, but the crazy thing is you can change one station for another station, hear the same song. And the fact that two stations are playing the exact same song at the exact same time is like it just shows you how broken it is. And if you don't care for that particular song, you
Ass
really
out for the
you
next 4
right like
minutes.
you stuck.
I
Now
was
you gotta browse other stations and hope that there's something different from a different genre. It's like, but I was feeling a very hip hop mood and I want to listen to hip hop. I don't want to go over this. I want to stay in this zone. So
I've
I
literally clicked on 107.9, 94.5, V103, and it's like body yada yada click, body yada yada click, body yada yada click. I'm like, God damn, they got
right.
Megan Thee Stallion on all three stations right now.
That happened to me just the other day. I mean, granted, the song is like when I say super new, but that happened with bongos.
Yeah,
Like literally, bongos was playing on it was 94.5,
107,
105.3,
105.3.
and 107.9.
Yep.
And it was just like, wow. I mean, I get that it's a new song, but like, did it drop today? I heard this last week, right? Like,
Yeah.
y'all acting like this is a world premiere. Y'all all got it. Like, don't do that. But you know what I'm saying? It's like my Spotify. Um, I've got I've got the premium Spotify membership. Wife, 3 kids, so we've got the 5 users. Everybody's got their own profile and such. But because of that, I am able to like I create a ton of playlists myself, and I have one playlist that is generated simply from my Shazam. And when I tell you I really like that playlist, and I like that playlist specifically because when I hear something that catches my ear and I listen to it for a little bit, and I'm like, yo, I like that. I Shazam that. Or if I've heard something and I didn't, like Jeff mentioned, I didn't catch it at the time to be like, who sings this, who that. I can Shazam it. So after I Shazam it all, and it all goes to this one playlist, that playlist is nothing but songs that caught my attention that I like. So it is a little bit more difficult to get kind of burned out on those songs um, because it always feels somewhat random yet beautifully familiar whenever I play that playlist. But it's always evolving and always changing, and stuff's always being added to it. There is Spotify actually has like its own algorithms and things like that. You like this song, you like that song, and so it recognizes this is a playlist that was curated for people who are fans of Doja Cat. This is an album, or this is a playlist that was created for fans of Childish Gambino, for fans of Tyler the Creator, for Chance the Rapper, whoever it is. And as I'm listening to different songs, like I've been introduced to a lot of what I would call chill hop, where it's almost um like it's very laid back, mellow kind of R&B, but it
Mm-hmm.
usually has like some nice hip hop beats under it. Um or, you know, it's mostly an R&B song with a rap section, like Cosmo Pike or a few other artists that fall into that category. Just being able to like relax and listen. I love the year in recap because it tells me like how much I've listened and like what percentage of Spotify users I fall into. And I fall into that zero point 0.1 or 0.2% of people who have listened. Like I want to say the last time it came through, it was like something crazy like 22,000 hours or something like that have been tallied, and it is, I enjoy being able to hear different things and learn different things, and so it will recommend music for me, and so I never have to worry about finding something new.
All right.
If I find that I'm burned out on something, there's always a new song to discover, and that's probably been the greatest thing since music. Um, it is. I don't know. Music is definitely an integrated part of our lives. Um, I don't see it's go. Like you can't get rid of music. Everything makes music. You know what I'm saying? And we as a people are just naturally
I
we
mean,
have
they
that
trying.
affinity,
They trying.
catch that beat. Like it will always catch that beat, you know? And I'm glad to see hip hop is still evolving. I'm glad that it's gotten to where it is, that it is the mainstay and the staple. I love hip hop. You
Yep.
know what I'm saying? I love hip hop. It is without a doubt my favorite genre of music. And even some stuff that's like lyric free, just the producer albums, the Najubes. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like, ain't no words on some of this stuff, but it was just somebody who sat and created 3 minutes of melodic beats with synth and wave and instruments and highs and lows, and you know it's
And I think too that's one of the beauties of hip hop. It is inclusive because it is the genre that says use whatever you need to use to make it.
yeah.
You need to use a sample it. You need to use a synth it. You want a real guitar, you want hand claps, you want a choir. Like there's no instrument that you will hear in a hip hop beat, in a hip hop song, and just be like, "Oh, that doesn't go there." And that just speaks to, I mean, the overall inclusiveness of the genre, which we didn't even talk about how it expanded globally, but people gravitate to that because they see other people making it and realize it's something that they can make too. I'm bullshitting around, make my little beats, and I'm sampling stuff, and I'm just doing whatever. And it's like I'm not no world famous producer, and I'm not selling beats. I just make it. I just do it for fun, and for me, it's more fun, and it keeps me plugged into just like my musical talents. It allows me to express that side of myself, and I think a lot of other people who play other types of music, like if you could be a classically trained pianist, but if you don't have a baby grand piano, good luck. Like expressing yourself. Good luck with maintaining your art. So the resilience, the accessibility of hip hop also is just like a reason why it's always going to go so strong, because it's never going to be this thing where you can't put it behind a paywall, because you can make it with anything. You can make all the hip hop classes you want, you can make all the hip hop whatever you want, but it's always going to be an art form of the people. And
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's still so much that we could talk about, and given that this is like really celebrated as the 50th anniversary, hip hop at 50, um, it's the whole year, so we can definitely come back and we can revisit and pick up on some more topics, especially regarding 50 years of hip hop. We could dive in. We could maybe dive more into um, the Black Star, the So Far Gone. Because I think mixtapes is that's a discussion by itself. You know what I'm saying? Like just talking about how mixtapes got not even how they got started, but you know what I'm saying, just like the impact that they have culturally on music as a whole. Because there's been so many people who were discovered through mixtapes, and like the underground music scene is it thrives off of mixtapes, and it's essentially like a large version. I've always viewed mixtapes as a bigger version of that guy standing in front of the store trying to sell you his CD for $5. But it turns out that CD is actually fire. You know what I'm saying? Like it's actually really, really good, and you kind of wish you had bought it from him. You know, um, that's kind of how I view mixtapes. So I mean, there's a lot more to discuss. Um, we could probably look more into Aquemini. We could have a discussion about the groups and the difference between the groups and the solo artists. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, there's like way more solo artists, but you know, think about things like how Tupac went from Digital Underground to Tupac. you
Yeah.
know, because that's an amazing journey, and lots of other artists have made similar connections and journeys. Like people weren't as popular when they were part of the group, but once they do their solo thing, like people feel them, and it could be because they're I don't know. It's a lot that can be discussed, and a lot that we could talk about. But for today, I want to thank all the guests who are actually on. I want to thank China Hustle for hopping on and being a part of the show.
Yeah, that was dope.
Award winning platinum
East
producer.
side.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, got to represent out here, baby. Um, it is phenomenal to see how hip hop has affected different people. Like and not that the age gap between us is so great, but it's big enough that we are in two different groups when it comes to hip hop. You know what I'm saying? You might have an appreciation for the classics. I remember when that shit was new on the radio, kind of thing. Um, you know what I'm saying? But even like my kid, whenever he hears something and he loves being able to introduce me to new artists he thinks I'm gonna like, and sometimes I let him introduce me to new artists. I get that shit on a playlist already somewhere. I know that song, but the fact that he found it, discovered it, and knew that that would be something I like, that influence, and it's almost always something hip hop, which is phenomenal. Um, yeah, I think we need to do another hip hop at 50 episode, um, because we had a lot of good stuff tonight, and I think I
We'll
want to
do
thank you.
top 5 next time.
We may have to do top 5, and we'll categorize. Like we can break it down. We can do some like what top 5 lyricists, top 5 groups, top 5. Or we can do a top 5 overall.
You just do your own personal.
Okay.
That's all I care about. There's no definitive list. Everything is just.
Oh no, it's all subjective, But I mean, it would be one of those things. Like, still, we got to categorize. Like, is it going to be top 5 overall, top 5 singles, solo? Like, So somebody makes the cut, because I know, like, it would be one of those things. Like, you would put the stipulations. It's got to be one group, one female, one this, one that. Now, you know what? We'll do a hip hop draft. How about that? And then
build your own record label.
There you go. And you can grab this artist, grab that artist. But then we could put the stipulation, you have to have it this. Okay, so maybe we'll do both. That could be 2 shows in the future. Hey man, it was a pleasure. I was so happy we were able to get China on tonight, and get him to talk. Maybe next go round we'll see about getting some local rappers. I know a couple rappers too. I know some people. I got a few contacts out here. But who knows? Pretty soon we may Dylan. Okay. All right, Tahir.
Dylon. That's from the
Dylon.
Dave Chappelle show.
Oh. Okay, see, you see I don't have my glasses on. I'm looking at this. I see some of the letters.
What up, Tahir? That's
Cool. Give a shout out. We appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in. Go back. Be sure to catch the full recap. May drop a couple bucks and let Opus come up with some good stuff from this because you always got some gems and save you some time and trouble. But see, that's how it's supposed to be used, as a tool, not as a creation.
Yes.
Hey, man, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for hopping on here with me tonight. And we will be back at it next week for China, myself, Elder Geek Sam, and Jeffrey. This has been Wednesday. We appreciate you. We will see you next week. But for now, we are out of here. Peace.